Chapter 443. Ding! 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 The sound of the martial master pills being refined rang from day to night and from midnight to early morning. It was definitely noise. However, Sect leader Jun was very happy when he heard it. He slept soundly and even danced energetically during his morning exercises. By noon, more than 4,000 martial master pills had been refined. Jun Changshao casually took out one pill from his interspatial ring and muttered, after consuming it, one can easily break through to martial master. If this news were to spread to the outside world, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Without hesitation, he gathered all the peak martial disciples and gave each of them one pill. The rest of the martial master pills were all stored in the medicine hall and set a rule that only peak martial disciples could receive them. Can one really break through to martial master after eating the pill? Since sect leaders said so, it must be true. I'm about to break through to martial master. I'm a little excited. The peak martial disciples who received the martial master pills all returned to their rooms and swallowed the pills while suppressing their excitement. It tasted good. It was a little sweet and fragrant. Whoosh whoosh. After a while, in the inner court disciples' rooms, the aura of advancement surged out of the rooms and gathered in mid-air, forming a rather spectacular scene. Jun Changshao stood in the main hall and witnessed the scene of his disciples breaking through. A bright smile appeared on his face. The feeling of his precious disciples breaking through was even more satisfying than his own advancement. This is too incredible. Yi Xingqian, who was comprehending the sword art in the inner court practice field, looked at the aura of advancement in disbelief. As a martial emperor, he had never seen so many people breaking through at the same time. Of course. In the Falling Star continent, it wasn't that a collective breakthrough had never happened before. For example, when a heavenly treasure was triggered, a divine attribute would suddenly appear in a certain area and the martial cultivators would benefit from it. However, relying on pills to break through at the same time was absolutely unprecedented. The vast aura of advancement lasted for about 2 hours and gradually decreased. The disciples who had taken the martial master pills all became martial masters. Boom! Boom! In the training room, the disciples who had just broken through to martial master were bombarding the testing machine one by one. Li Qingyang was at the side in charge of statistics. Sect leader. After the test ended, Li Qingyang said, the average strength of the disciples who broke through to martial master is around 40,000. Jiang Ye said in surprise, they are all high-level martial masters. A rank 1 martial master had a strength of around 30,000, which was considered average. Around 40,000 was considered high, 50,000 was considered extreme, and 60,000 was considered superior. In the Falling Star continent, those who had become advanced martial masters usually had superior spiritual roots. On the other hand, there were only a few iron bone disciples who had just broken through. Most of them were of mortal bone. This was very powerful. It is no wonder that I, Elder Jiang, am astonished. It's comfortable. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair with a smile on his face. Being able to train a group of disciples with low aptitude into advanced martial masters filled him with a sense of honor. The system poured cold water on him. The host still has 99 years to go before Iron Bone becomes the strongest sect. If you are a man and stand before me, Jun Changshao fiercely said, I'll definitely punch you until you can't take care of yourself. What a pity. The system said, if the host isn't there, I won't be able to hit you. Jun Changshao was too lazy to pay attention to him. He muttered, my realm has increased. I just need to wait for Xinjiang County to come. Apart from Yao Menjing, all 2,524 Iron Bone disciples had reached martial master or above. Even a fifth-rate sect didn't have that many. Of course. It didn't mean that Iron Bone was strong. It was because the disciples had a strong foundation and less top-notch strength. Not to mention martial kings, even Wuzong only had 2 pitiful disciples. One was Jun Changshao, and the other was Xuerengui. There were quite a few Iron Bone peak martial masters. Li Qingyang and other inner disciples, as well as Zhongyi, who had just entered the sect, had all reached that level. It was a pity that they didn't have Wuzong pills. They could only rely on their understanding of martial arts to achieve a breakthrough. It wouldn't take long. It was because their aptitudes were good. This wasn't it. After a few days, Yi Xingqian, who was stuck at peak martial master, first refined the cyclone in his body into a spirit core and officially entered Wuzong. Boom! In the training room, he punched out. The testing machine displayed a strength of 280,000 jin. Not bad, not bad. Yi Xingqian was very satisfied. In his previous life, he had used 5 years to enter first grade Wuzong. Now, he only used 1 year to do it. Moreover, he didn't use any martial arts at that time, so his strength was only around 200,000 jin. Now, it was 80,000 jin higher. He could grow faster and become stronger. Naturally, it was because he was cultivating at Iron Bone. Thinking back to when he was carried here and threatened, Yi Xingqian couldn't help but think, if I had chosen to leave back then, it would have been very good if I could break through to martial disciple in a year. Increasing his strength was only one of the benefits. Secondly, he had also cultivated Yi Jing and other martial arts. The benefits were definitely great. At this time, if sect leader Jun wanted Yi Xingqian to leave, he would definitely not agree. He would definitely hug the pillar and say proudly, "I'm not leaving, I'm not leaving, I'm not leaving." Boom! Suddenly, the sound of a fist was heard. Yi Xingqian came back to his senses and saw Jun Changshao standing in front of the testing machine. The strength of the punch was 600,000 jin. For a peak Wuzong to produce this kind of strength, it was definitely something only a superior grade martial artist could do. Although Yi Xingqian was surprised, he wasn't envious. Because he was confident that he could also produce 600,000 jin when he broke through to peak Wuzong. On a tall mountain peak, Lu Qianqian, dressed in white, floated in the air. She looked like a fairy. Qianqian, when you enter Wuzong, you can go to Luzhou in the northeast to look for the extreme mysterious ice pool. With your talent and physique, coupled with the Taixian ice heart technique, you can definitely increase your cultivation quickly. But you must remember that your heart must be as still as water. Otherwise, if your state of mind is slightly disturbed and you enter the extreme mysterious ice pool, you will be eroded by the 10,000-year cold ice qi and suffer unbearable pain. The old voice rang in Lu Qianqian's ears, causing the worry between her brows to become even more intense. She thought to herself, "Grand Elder, although I have broken through to martial grandmaster now, I have yet to truly achieve a heart as calm as still water." What was it that made her unable to conceal her spirit and qi, unable to comprehend the state of being as still as water of the Taixian ice heart technique? "What are you thinking about?" A voice came from below. Jun Changshao was sitting on a rock. He had a charming smile on his face. Was it him? Lu Qianqian's beautiful face returned to its usual coldness. She said, "Sect leader, I want to go out and gain experience." "How long will it take?" Jun Changshao asked. Looking towards the northeast, Lu Qianqian said uncertainly, "Maybe 10 years, maybe 100 years. 10 years, 100 years. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Is there any difference between this and leaving the sect? Sect leader, didn't you say that I will always be the eldest disciple of the School of Iron Bones? Lu Qianqian said, so, no matter how long I leave, I will always be the eldest disciple of the School of Iron Bones. You really want to go out and gain experience? Yes. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, I respect your choice. Chapter 444. However, Jun Changshao said, now is not the time to go and train. Let's wait for the war to end before leaving. Okay. Lu Qianqian thought so too. She only wanted to ask for the sect leader's opinion. If he agreed, she would consider choosing a suitable time to leave. Speaking of which, if Jun Changshao didn't agree, would Lu Qianqian still go and train? This question was not asked nor answered. Thus, it was up to everyone to imagine. Actually, Jun Changshao wouldn't completely bind his disciples to the sect. Going out to train was beneficial to their growth, so he definitely wouldn't oppose it. As for defections, he wasn't worried. This was because if a disciple had the slightest thought, their memories would be erased. It was because of this restriction that sect leader Jun dared to recruit disciples without any scruples. Otherwise, he would definitely check them one by one to make sure they weren't spies sent by other factions. Currently, there were more than 2,000 disciples, and none of them lost their memories. This meant that they truly approved of Iron Bone and weren't here to play spy. Of course. As the sect's prestige grew, there would definitely be other factions that had such thoughts. Sect leader Jun was looking forward to how his memories would be erased. The system was speechless. The host's idea is really cheap and naughty. Iron Bone's disciples had a great breakthrough. The war outside was still ongoing. A few brave city lords in Huayang County were still stubbornly defending their cities with the soldiers and civilians. As for Haeong County, although they couldn't prevent more cities from falling, they were able to delay the enemy. Using this time, Jun Changshao ordered his disciples to continue cultivating and strive to break through to a higher level. Sect leader Shui Rengui said, "I think we should take the initiative to attack and catch the Xinjiang County army off guard." The members of Wolf Rider Hall had all become martial masters. This gave him more confidence. Jun Changshao shook his head. "If we attack without permission, it's the same as directly participating in the war. Xinjiang County might give up on attacking the other two counties and focus on attacking Qingyang County." "Makes sense," Shui Rengui said. Jun Changshao looked at the sand table and said, "So we can only wait. Wait for them to attack, and then use the excuse of defense to repel them." The mission was to defend Qingyang City. As long as the other party was defeated, the mission would be completed. Sect leader. At this moment, Li Luoqiu walked in with quick steps and said solemnly, "News came from the front lines. After Xinjiang County broke through the fortified city, they mobilized 30,000 soldiers and are charging toward Green Sun City." Jun Changshao was speechless. "Can't you guys follow the rules? If you don't destroy Haeong County and Huayang County, why do you keep harassing my Qingyang County?" Shui Rengui explained, "Xinjiang County wants to take down Green Sun City, and then attack the other cities in Haeong City from different directions." "Alright," Jun Changshao said, "what will come will come. We can't avoid it no matter how many there are." Li Luoqiu continued, "According to the news, the leader of this invasion is called Tao Yuan, another valiant general under Bai Ruihu's command." "I've heard of Tao Yuan," Shui Rengui said. "He comes from a family of generals and has studied military law since he was young. He is a junior with a bright future. The army he has trained is called the Tiger Might Army, and it is one of the best in Yangzhou." Although he hadn't been a soldier for many years, he still paid attention to military matters. It was a habit that was hard to get rid of. "So, the 30,000 attacking army is stronger than the cavalry?" Jun Changshao asked. Shui Rengui said, "The Tiger army led by Tao Yuan is well disciplined and brave. A boorish man like Miao Hui can't compare to them." "Can they be compared to the Wolf Rider Hall?" Jun Changshao asked. Shui Rengui said, "Of course not." As a former 5-star general, he was confident that he would be able to defeat Tao Yuan even if he were to fight him head-on. Of course. It was built on the fact that the Wolf Rider Hall was too strong. If he had 2,000 or 3,000 soldiers, even if he was possessed by the war god, he wouldn't be able to fight against such an elite force. "Let's go," Jun Changshao said. "Let's go to Qingyang City." Yes. The 1,000 members of the Wolf Rider Hall left Iron Bone on their Hurricane Wolves. Not only did Sect Master Jun transfer Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other inner disciples, he also sent another 1,000 inner disciples. The sect only had a little over 2,500 people. Taking away 2,000 of them at once could be considered as going all out. The epic mission was to defend Qingyang City. Jun Changshao had to do it without fail. If he failed the mission, he would be stuck at Wuzong Peak for a long time. Damn it! On the way, he broke down. Although the mission gives a lot of rewards, it will be terrible if I can't complete it. Qingyang City, City Lord's Mansion. Xie Guangquan was like an ant on a hot pan. He was anxiously pacing back and forth. When Jun Changshao received the news, he also received the news. Jinyang County didn't play by the rules. They sent 30,000 soldiers from Heian County. This was something he didn't expect. What made our adorable city Lord Xie collapse even more was that they were actually from the Tiger Might Army. This was the elite army that got third place in the army tournament a few years ago. If they came to attack Qingyang City, they would definitely die. City Lord. A general gritted his teeth and said, "No matter what army Jinyang County sends, I will defend the city to the death." This person was called Sun He, the general of Qingyang City. Although he had a lot of experience in leading armies, he was still too weak compared to a general like Tao Yuan. If he was given an army with the same number of people and strength, he would lose no matter how many times he fought on the battlefield. Some people were born with military talent. People like Tao Yuan who was willing to study hard would definitely beat many generals. Of course. If Shui Rengui was given an army with the same number of soldiers, he could beat Tao Yuan until he couldn't tell north. After all, a 5-star general didn't rely on age. They climbed up step by step with strength. City Lord. At this moment, a subordinate reported, "Sect Master Jun is here to visit." Xie Guangquan, who was anxious, hurriedly said, "Quickly invite him in, quickly invite him in." In the hall. Jun Changshao had just sat down when Xie Guangquan said with a frown, "Sect Master Jun, 30,000 soldiers from Jinyang County are coming. I'm afraid Qingyang City is in danger." The enemy was the Tiger Army led by Tao Yuan. He didn't have any hope. "Thank you, City Lord." Jun Changshao said, "I also received the news. That's why I brought my disciples here to help." Xie Guangquan was very moved, but his heart was also filled with bitterness. The enemy is the famous Tiger Army of southwest Yangzhou. Qingyang City won't be able to escape this calamity. That might not be the case. Jun Changshao pointed at Shui Rengui who was standing behind him and said, "City Lord Xia, I brought a general who is good at marching and fighting. He will definitely be able to help Qingyang City resolve this crisis." Xie Guangquan couldn't help but take another look at this slightly sloppy middle-aged man. He muttered in his heart, he doesn't have the aura of a soldier at all. Can he really march and fight? Being recognized by Miao Hui reminded Shui Rengui. He had specially disguised himself when he came to help, and his general aura was well hidden. At first, Jun Changshao didn't understand and asked, "Hall Master Shui, why did you disguise yourself?" Shui Rengui said, "I'm just a deserter. If news of this spread to Zhongzuan Prefecture, it would only bring unnecessary trouble. Hall Master Shui is afraid of bringing trouble to the sect, right?" Jun Changshao said. Shui Rengui nodded. Jun Changshao glanced at him, then looked at the disguised Jiang Ye. He said seriously, "When Iron Bone has enough strength to contend against all dangers, you won't have to hide anymore." Chapter 445. During this period of time, Mayor Xie had also been very attentive. He had strengthened the walls of Qingyang City a lot. However, it was nothing more than a superficial defense. If the other party used a lethal weapon like the demon explosive crossbow, the city would collapse even if it reached the clouds. In the city, there was a rather spacious drill ground. The 50,000 soldiers of Qingyang City had already gathered. Although they were very disciplined, they were only 3rd or 4th rank martial disciples in terms of strength. Not to mention facing the Tiger Army that was about to attack, it would be difficult for them to fight against Miao Hui's cavalry. Sect leader Jun Xie Guangquan walked up to the high platform and said, "This is the fighting force of Qingyang City." Jun Changshao stopped and said, "Mayor Xia must have spent a lot of money." Xie Guangquan almost burst into tears. 50,000 soldiers. Their daily training and equipment cost a lot of money. It took a lot of effort to train them. Shui Rengui said telepathically, "Sect leader, the soldiers trained by Mayor Xia will definitely not be able to fight against Tao Yuan's tiger army. I think we can let the disciples defend the city. Jun Changshao also thought so. It was not that he did not trust Xie Guanquan's soldiers, but guarding Qingyang City was related to whether or not he could complete his mission. He had to be careful. Mayor Xia, Jun Changshao said, if you trust me, I, Iron Bone, am willing to defend Qingyang City on your behalf. Then I'll have to trouble you. Sect leader Jun Xie Guanquan also knew that the soldiers he trained had almost no chance of winning, so it was better to bet on Jun Changshao. The Iron Bone he took care of had become strong in just a short year. Perhaps they could really defend the city. These 50,000 soldiers will listen to sect leader Jun's command. Xie Guanquan even gave up the military power. It was obvious that he was really going to gamble. No need. Jun Changshao said, just let your soldiers rest in the city. Leave the rest to the Iron Bone sect. Mayor Xie's mouth twitched. Although the 50,000 soldiers were not elite, it was still a force. Sect leader Jun did not use them. He was a little too confident. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, thousands of Iron Bone disciples ascended the tower and lined up in a row, keeping a large distance from each other. Green Sun City was huge, and so were the city walls. It was definitely unrealistic for 1,000 people to stand side by side. The Iron Bone disciples stood on top of the city gate tower with their chests puffed out. Their backs were facing the city, and their bodies exuded an unyielding aura. The citizens, who were originally slightly panicked, felt a sense of security when they sensed that aura. Mayor Xia, who had been a little worried and doubtful at first, was also affected by the Iron Bone disciples' unyielding attitude and became respectful. Sect Master Jun. He shouted, the 3,600,000 people of Green Sun City are willing to live and die with the city. We are willing to live and die with the city. 50,000 soldiers shouted in unison. We are willing to live and die with the city. The millions of citizens in the city also shouted loudly. For a time, his voice tore through the sky and was unable to calm down for a long time. The murderous aura that had gathered in the sky turned into a hot-blooded aura that made people's blood boil. Jun Changshao sat on the roof of the city gate tower with the back of his hand supporting his chin. He looked straight ahead and murmured, as long as I, Iron Bone, am here, no one will be able to break through Green Sun City. Whoosh! Xiao Ziji jumped onto a sentry tower and placed the Type 88 sniper rifle and AWM sniper rifle in place. Then, he took out more than 10 magazines and began to reload them. The Zhenyang County Army would definitely fire frequently if they attacked. He did not want to reload after firing as it would only be a waste of time. On the other two sentry towers, the Drizzle Hall members were already in place. They formed a group of 3 and set up 2 God-modified AWM sniper rifles. These people's physical strength was not as strong as Xiao Ziji's. If they fired frequently, they would have to replace them to better withstand the recoil. The 3 snipers were in place, and the Iron Bone disciples on top of the city wall summoned their iron shields. The magic explosive crossbows that were taken from the Miao Yu cavalry were also summoned. Each disciple was given 5 magic explosive crossbows. In the city, the members of Wolf Rider Hall led by Zhong Yi were also preparing. Thousands of hurricane wolves stood on the drill ground, emitting an intimidating aura. I can finally stretch my arms and legs. I've been holding it in for so long. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei were in front of the city gate tower doing warm-ups before the battle. Lu Qianqian, Li Qingyang, Tian Qi, Yi Xingchen, Long Zixuan, and other inner disciples were also in front of the city gate tower. Jiangye sat in the recess of the city wall, tapping his fingers on the brick surface with a smile on his face. In the upcoming battle, Iron Bone would definitely send out all of their elites. Sect Master Shui Rengui walked up to the city gate tower and said, everything is ready. Okay. Jun Changshao replied. Buzz! Buzz! At this moment, a faint sound came from the north. Dust filled the air in the distance, as if a sandstorm was sweeping over with great momentum. Ta! Ta! As it got closer, the sound became clearer. It was obviously the sound of thousands of horses galloping. They're here. Mayor Xie's heart was in his mouth. The people in the city were also nervous. After all, the invaders were from the 6th class Jinyang County. Sitting on the roof, Jun Changshao smiled and said, "Today will determine whether we can complete the epic mission and become the sword and martial king." Hiss! Hiss! After a short while, the dust gradually settled 1,000 feet away from the city. 20,000 fully armed warhorses stood side by side, carrying valiant soldiers in leather armor on their backs. Ta! 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 After a while, another 10,000 infantrymen in armor rushed over with spears in their hands and lined up neatly behind the cavalrymen. From the aura they exuded, they were definitely much stronger than Miao Hui's cavalry. Whoosh! 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 As the enemy appeared, the iron-boned disciples on the city wall retreated and stood on the northern city wall. The camera was looking down from the sky. Outside the city, the morale of Jinyang County's 30,000 soldiers was high. Inside the city, there were only 1,000 soldiers on the northern city wall and city tower. This was a bit of a disparity. One day in the future, when the flames of war spread to Qingyang County and tens of thousands of cavalrymen arrived at Qingyang City, a man and his disciples would stand on the city wall and protect the city's 3.6 million people with their iron bodies. This sentence, this hole, I will fill it up today. General. After the Jinyang County's 30,000 soldiers were in position, a deputy general pointed at the city tower and said in surprise, "Someone is sitting there." Tao Yuan, who was around 25 years old, looked up and saw a person sitting there. Our attack this time is considered open and aboveboard. Qingyang City must have received the news. Why are there so few soldiers on the city wall? A deputy general asked in confusion. Could it be that they know they can't compete with our Tiger Army and sent some people up to put on a show? Someone asked. Tao Yuan kicked his horse and walked to the front of the army. He shouted at Qingyang City, "Is the one sitting on the city tower the Qingyang City Lord?" Xie Guangquan, who was in the city, heard this and his mouth twitched violently. "I'm not as flirtatious as Sect leader Jun." Chapter 446. 30,000 enemy troops were invading, but Sect leader Jun was still sitting on the roof of the city tower. Sect leader. Li Qingyang leaned on the 8x scope and aimed at Tao Yuan's helmet. The target has been locked on. Hit the horse's foot. Jun Changshao said, "Give him a greeting gift." Xiao Zuiji lowered the muzzle slightly and pulled the trigger decisively. With his current marksmanship, he would definitely hit wherever he pointed. However, the moment the bullet shot out silently, a black shadow suddenly flew out from the enemy army and blocked in front of Tao Yuan, instantly forming a defensive barrier. Bang! The bullet hit the barrier and a muffled sound was heard. However, the barrier was extremely strong and couldn't be broken. Jiangya frowned and said, "Martial King. TSK TSK. Jun Changshao said, "I wanted to give him a greeting gift, but I didn't expect him to give himself a show of strength." Whoosh! The old man standing in front of Tao Yuan waved his long sleeve and removed the thick spiritual energy wall. He said in a deep voice, "Only incompetent rats would stab people in the back." Although he said that, he was shocked in his heart. The bullet was too fast. Although he caught it with his spiritual sense, he wouldn't have been able to save it in time if he was delayed. Tao Yuan's expression changed slightly. If it wasn't for the protection of a strong cultivator, he would have been in danger just now. He thought too much. Sect leader Jun was just giving a greeting gift. Even if he didn't have the protection of a martial king, he would at most hit the horse's foot and disturb it. Whoosh! Jun Changshao stood up and said, "General Tao, Qingyang County is just a small place. Why do you have to attack us?" Tao Yuan said, "Friend, you haven't answered my question yet. The situation was so dangerous just now, but he could still speak so calmly. This person's state of mind was very strong. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, I'm not the mayor of Qingyang City. I'm the Iron Bone sect leader. Jun Changshao? Tao Yuan asked. Our sect master Jun's name has spread far and wide. Even the rising stars of the military world have heard of his name. Jun Changshao said, that's right. Tao Yuan frowned slightly and said, you're just a sect. Are you going to participate in a secular war? If your True Sun County were to attack other counties, my Iron Bone would naturally not participate. However, Green Sun City is my home. How can I sit idly by? Jun Changshao said. All right. Tao Yuan said, Sect Master Jun is determined to protect Green Sun City with his life. Nonsense. If I don't guard Qingyang City, the mission will fail. Humph, the martial emperor, who was standing in front of Tao Yuan, snapped coldly, who was the one who shot the arrow? Come out and fight me for 300 rounds if you have the guts. Jiangya lazily got up and said indifferently, martial kings are not allowed to participate in worldly wars. You should know about this rule, right? The martial king sneered and said, this old man is not participating. I just want to exchange blows with the experts of Qingyang City. Damn. A martial king wants to exchange blows with the experts of a 9th grade county? It's obvious that I'm here to bully people. All right then. Jiangya said, this elder will exchange blows with you. Ta! He stomped on the city wall and used the cloud steps. He jumped down with his hands behind his back. It could be said that he was extremely confident. Elder Jiang is mighty. The disciples cheered and cheered. Plop! Jiangya accidentally jumped down from the city wall and fell to the ground. Jiang, the disciples' mouths twitched. Are you sure you're the only elder of the Iron Bone sect? Cough cough. Jiangya stood up from the ground and patted the dust off. He coughed twice and said, the ground is too soft to withstand our battle. Why don't we change the location? Forcefully giving himself a way out, this move was definitely better than Jun Changshao's. Humph, the martial king sneered and said, you choose the location. Jiangya pointed at the forest in the distance and said, let's do it there. Then, he transmitted his voice, sect leader, martial kings can't participate in worldly wars. I'll lure this guy away. The rest is up to you. Go, Jun Changshao said. It was the first time he knew that martial kings couldn't participate in wars, but he still let out a long sigh of relief. There must be many martial kings in the 6th grade Jinyang County. If 2 of them were sent to attack the city, they definitely wouldn't be able to defend Qingyang City. Whoosh! Whoosh! Jiangya and the martial king used their movement techniques and walked toward the forest in front of them. Tao Yuan returned to the formation. Dozens of soldiers wearing heavy armor and carrying medium-sized shields blocked in front of him. Obviously, they were worried that hidden weapons would shoot at them again. General Tao. Jun Changshao said, Qingyang City is small and has few people. There aren't many valuable resources. Why don't we all retreat peacefully? If they could solve the problem with words, they naturally didn't want to use weapons. Tao Yuan said, I'm here under orders. If sect leader Jun doesn't want too many casualties, you can open the city and surrender. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, the word surrender doesn't exist in Jun's dictionary. If that's the case, then we can only decide the winner on the battlefield. Tao Yuan waved his hand after saying that. Whoosh! Whoosh! The cavalry in front made way, and hundreds of infantrymen pushed out 4 heavy siege weapons that looked like catapults. Fuck! Jun Changshao said in surprise, there's such a thing. Shuiren Gui said, this is a crystal core catapult. It's powered by crystal cores. Even the most ordinary stone can create a super destructive force. At this time, Xie Guanquan also walked up. When he saw the 4 catapults, his expression changed drastically. It's over, it's over. This is much more powerful than the demon explosive crossbow. Sect leader Jun Tao Yuan said, I'll give you one more chance. Do you choose to surrender or defend to the death? Caw caw caw. A few infantrymen worked together to load the 4 iron balls that weighed 1,000 pounds onto the catapults. They were powered by crystal cores. Once they were thrown, the power generated was enough to blast a hole in the city wall. However, they were only loaded with iron balls. If they were loaded with crystal cores, they could easily blow up half of the city wall. Jun Changshao said decisively, defend to the death. Tao Yuan waved his hand. Whoosh! 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 After the crystal core catapults were calibrated, the 4 iron balls were immediately thrown out. Because of the crystal cores, the speed was not only fast, but it even dragged a stream of light. Mayor Xie's expression changed drastically. The force of each ball was at least 200,000 pounds. If they hit the city wall, the defense that he had painstakingly built would be in vain. Zhou Hong. Jun Changshao said, I'll leave it to you. Ta. Zhou Hong stepped forward and stood at the front of the city tower. He put one hand on his sword and locked his eyes on the 4 flying iron balls. This. Xie Guangquan was dumbfounded. Such fast speed, such strong force. Was he going to rely on his sword to break it? Clang! Suddenly, the sound of a sword being unsheathed could be heard. In Mayor Xie's field of vision, a dense sword shadow appeared, interweaving into an inescapable net. In one breath, 80 swords. Chapter 447. Because of Zhou Hong's special cultivation method, the number of times he appeared in Iron Bone was about the same as Sima Zhongda and Cui Bujin. But that didn't mean that our swordsmen didn't grow. Standing in front of the city gate tower and using the single-word speed formula, he slashed out 80 times in an instant. That was the proof of his increase in strength. This guy has gotten stronger. Yi Xingchen thought. Although he had reached Wuzong, he wasn't confident that he could win against Zhou Hong. Before Zhou Hong joined the sect, he was already a martial master. Although he didn't have access to martial resources, he could still improve his swordsmanship by practicing the Ling Jian divine formula. He was a professional swordsman, to the point where he was intoxicated. If he wanted to win, he had to suppress him with greater strength. Xie Guangquan's eyes widened. He only felt Zhou Hong's wrists in front of him. How could there be so many sword chi? Expert, expert, expert. Whoosh! 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 Just at this moment, 4 iron balls that carried the power of 10,000 kilograms flew over in an arc, and they were just enveloped by the interweaving sword chi. Puchi! Puchi! The moment the iron balls flew over, they were cut into pieces like tofu. Their power was also reduced. Ding! 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 The disciples of the Iron Bone sect raised their iron shields one after another, effortlessly blocking the falling pieces of iron. Tao Yuan and the enemy general widened their eyes when they saw this. 1 man and 1 sword. Just how terrifying was it that he was able to easily neutralize all 4 iron balls that were shot at him? Bang! Sect leader Jun caught the flying iron balls with one hand and said, My disciple's strength is probably not weaker than the 2nd or 3rd stage Wuzong. The system said, this kid's future achievements will definitely not be limited to the Sword King. He might be a Sword Emperor or even a Sword Saint. TSK, TSK. Jun Changshao said, that's a high evaluation. I've sinned. He pointed at the 4 crystal throwing machines and said, destroy all of them. Bang! 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 Xiao Ziji fired 1 shot, pulled the bolt and fired 4 shots. The whole process was extremely fast. Boom! 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 The 4 bullets hit the crystal core of the launcher precisely, raising an enormous explosion and blowing away dozens of enemies nearby. Tao Yuan and his lieutenants were all dumbstruck. Jun Changshao sat down again and said, it's impolite not to reciprocate. Is General Tao satisfied with the greeting gift from Green Sun City? He was very satisfied. And it was very frightening. Tao Yuan's expression was extremely ugly as he thought to himself, what kind of hidden weapon is this? It actually managed to break through the catapult from such a distance. It was a technology that had never existed on the Starfall continent. General Tao. Jun Changshao said, let me tell you this responsibly. If you really want to attack my Qingyang city, I'm afraid that your soldiers will all die here. Humph, a deputy general snorted coldly and said, what big words. You don't believe me? Jun Changshao snapped his fingers and said, babies, let's show these guests who came from afar today. Creak below, the sound of the city gates opening could be heard. Awo! Awo! The members of the Wolf Riding Hall, who were already prepared, rushed out on their hurricane wolves and lined up neatly outside Qingyang City. Hiss! The appearance of the hurricane wolves caused the 20,000 war horses to neigh in fear. However, they quickly calmed down after being comforted by the soldiers. It was obvious that these war horses were more experienced than Miao Kuai's war horses. General! A deputy general said, it's the hurricane wolves. Tao Yuan's expression turned ugly. He knew that the hurricane wolves were at least as strong as a rank 4 or 5 martial master. Riding them in battle was definitely not something his war horses could compare to. General Tao. Jun Changshao said proudly, against my Wolf Riding Hall, do you think your 20,000 cavalrymen can win? Tao Yuan said indifferently, although your mounts are strong, they don't rely on brute force on the battlefield. Does this mean that the members of the Wolf Riding Hall are only brute force? Jun Changshao laughed. Swoosh! Shui Rengui, who was standing on the city gate tower, waved the war flag and said to himself, little guy, today I will teach you a lesson. What is a battlefield, what is war? Kill! Zhong Yi, who received the order, shouted loudly. Swoosh! Swoosh! The members of the Wolf Riding Hall raised their overlord spears and charged forward on their hurricane wolves. Their explosive momentum disturbed the surrounding air. Fight! Tao Yuan ordered. Ta ta ta! The 20,000 cavalrymen moved forward and formed a battle formation. Looking from the sky, it looked like a crescent moon. Shui Rengui knew that Tao Yuan wanted to rely on the advantage of numbers to form a large net and surround the members of the Wolf Riding Hall. Good strategy. Unfortunately, you underestimated my Iron Bone Wolf Riding Hall. Swoosh! Shui Rengui immediately waved the war flag. Zhong Yi shouted, break the enemy lines, only death, kill, swoosh. Swoosh! Swoosh! The members of the Wolf Rider Hall, who were following closely behind him, gathered together and formed a spear formation. Then, they attacked the net like sharp arrows. A group of wild wolf beasts could change their formation so quickly. This made Tao Yuan quite surprised. Kill! The commander of the cavalrymen drew his sword and rushed forward. Looking down from the sky, a spear and rolling waves were rushing at each other from the left and right. Release the arrows! The commander of the Tiger Riding Hall shouted. The charging cavalrymen waved their hands and took out bows and arrows from their horses. Their legs were tightly clamped on the horse's back. They held the bow with their right hand and pulled the bowstring with their left hand. They were not only cavalrymen but also archers. Swoosh! 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 The 20,000 cavalrymen shot their arrows at the same time. 20,000 arrows were shot and formed a F1 shape. Defend! Zhong Yi shouted. Swoosh! 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 The charging cavalrymen summoned their iron shields from their interspatial rings and raised them. The disciples in the front activated their defensive barrier, forming a 360 degrees defense without any blind spots. Ding! 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 The sword rain was blocked by the iron shields. Release, swoosh! Bang! Before the deputy general, who was charging over with the cavalry, could give the order, the flowing light bullet directly pierced through his temple. Plop! The corpse fell and was trampled by the following horses. Caw! Xiao Ziji threw his AWM and set up his Type 88 sniper rifle. He fired 20 bullets at the crowd as fast as he could. Plop! Plop! 20 charging soldiers fell from their horses one after another. There were small holes between their eyebrows. Not a single bullet missed its mark, and every move was fatal. Although the charging cavalrymen did not have the commander to give orders, they still took out arrows from their quiver. However, they did not have time to pull the bowstring because the Iron Bone disciples were already charging at them with the help of the hurricane wolves. Poochie! Poochie! The tip of the Overlord spear in front shone brightly. It instantly shot out a stream of light and directly pierced the chest of the enemy soldier in front. Kill! Kill! The following disciples followed and charged with the Overlord spear in their hands. They directly tore a hole in the net that appeared. Tao Yuan was dumbfounded by such a valiant and powerful combat strength. Chapter 448. The Tiger Might army trained by Tao Yuan had been through hundreds of battles. It was one of the top elite troops in southwest Yangzhou. However, they were completely vulnerable in front of the Iron Bone Wolf Riders. That was normal. Although the Tiger Might army was well equipped and mostly rank 6 or rank 7 martial disciples, the members of the Wolf Rider Hall were all martial masters, and high-level ones at that. They had done a strength test earlier. Without any martial arts, their explosive strength was around 45,000 kilograms. Together with the Hurricane Wolves and the Overlord's aura, it would be a piece of cake for one Wolf Rider to fight against 10 Tiger Might battalion soldiers. Jun Changshao dared to send 1,000 people to fight the 30,000 enemy soldiers because he was absolutely superior in strength and equipment. Otherwise, he would have just defended the city and let them attack. Thud, thud, thud. Thud, thud, thud. The Tiger Might army did not panic because their defense line was torn apart. Many soldiers quickly closed the net and surrounded the spears that were charging in. Tao Yuan was relieved when he saw that. How can 1,000 people escape when surrounded by the Iron Bucket formation? The strength of the Wolf Riders surprised him. However, they were few in number. Once they were surrounded, they would be sitting ducks. Kill! Kill! Zhong Yi led the team to turn around and charge toward the area where the cavalry had just gathered. Because they were strong and well-equipped, they were unstoppable. Poochie! Poochie! More of the Tiger Might army were knocked off their horses. Soon, the members of the Wolf Rider Hall fought their way out of the encirclement. During the process, the enemy must have counterattacked. However, although the spears could hit their targets, they were blocked by the iron shields. Whoosh! 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 More than 10 soldiers of the Tiger Might army poured their spiritual energy into their sabers and slashed at Li Yao with their sabers. Ding! Ding! The Iron Bone disciple who was besieged suddenly waved his Overlord spear and broke the sabers in front of him, but he could not protect his back. Tao Yuan sneered. This was the result of breaking in recklessly. Ding! 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 6 or 7 sabers all hit the Iron Bone disciple's back, and clanking sounds were heard. Tao Yuan's smile froze. The Tiger Might army soldiers were also dumbfounded. Die! Whoosh! After the Iron Bone disciple blocked a few slashes, he turned around and sent the dazed soldiers flying. On the other side, there were also many members who were attacked from both sides. However, no matter if it was swords, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, or forks, none of them were able to hurt them. In the end, they were even able to beat up their enemies. Why was that? This was because they were wearing soft silk armor that was impenetrable by swords and spears. The members of the Wolf Rider Hall gave face to the Tiger Army and didn't activate their seal shields. Otherwise, no matter how they attacked, they wouldn't be able to get close. Kill! Zhong Yi roared furiously, the hurricane wolf beneath him moving at full speed. The overlord spear in its hands danced wildly on both sides, and wherever it passed, the enemy soldiers would be sent flying. This was definitely a tiger general. Boom! Boom! The members of the Wolf Rider Hull followed closely behind their commander. They maintained a long snake formation, and in the end, they killed their way out of the encirclement. Tao Yuan's facial muscles had already stiffened. Surrounded by his iron bone formation, thousands of iron bone disciples were still able to fight their way out. This was definitely a blow to their self-esteem. However, the show had just begun. Under the wave of Xuerengui's battle flag, Zhong Yi turned his spearhead and led his members to kill their way in. It was like Zhao Zilong of Changshan and Changban Slope. Awo! Awo! Boom! 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 The hurricane wolf ran wildly, and with its strong body, it knocked the warhorses away. The members of the Wolf Rider Hull who were riding on the hurricane wolf frequently stabbed their overlord spears. Streaks of light flashed, and the surrounding enemy soldiers were knocked to the ground one by one. When Zhong Yi led his men out of the chaos, 4,000 to 5,000 of the 20,000 iron bone cavalry were either dead or injured. Tao Yuan was completely dumbfounded. The elite division that he had painstakingly built and had won third place in the army tournament was actually being harvested like weeds in front of thousands of iron bone disciples. If it were any other division in Qingyang County, the Tiger Army would be able to completely crush them. However, in front of the Wolf Rider Hull, it was completely useless. It was like a martial disciple fighting with a well-equipped and powerful martial master with his bare hands. Not to mention injuring the martial master, it would be amazing if he could even touch the corner of the martial master's clothes. Some readers thought that people would die on the battlefield. That was right. War was merciless and the battlefield was cruel. Death and injury were inevitable. However, when the Wolf Rider Hull appeared in an invincible manner, death and injury were negated. Sect leader Jun had worked hard during this period. Moreover, with Jun Changxiao's character, he would never fight a battle that he was not confident in. Since he dared to fight against an army of 30,000 with only 1,000 people, he must be confident. Kill! Kill! Zhong Yi led his men to charge again. This time, they changed into a triangular formation. The members kept their overlord spears and took out their cold-edged swords. Whoosh! 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 The hurricane wolf galloped forward as fast as the wind. Under the enhancement of spiritual energy, the cold-edged swords suddenly flashed with dazzling sword light, mercilessly harvesting the Tiger Army's wolf riders who were like wheat. After this battle, they lost as many as 2,000 people. After a few rounds of charging back and forth, the Tiger Army's casualties had risen to half. Tao Yuan would not allow the enemy to continue killing like this. He waved the war flag angrily. 10,000 infantrymen strode forward, holding special long weapons with hooks at the top. These were hooked spears used to restrain cavalry. Whoosh! 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 10,000 infantrymen raised their hooked spears and pointed them at the ground. Idiots, Jun Changxiao said indifferently. Awo! Awo! Zhong Yi led his men to charge again. Although he saw the strange-looking weapons and the possibility of sweeping the wolves' legs, he sneered and shouted, "Charge!" Whoosh! 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 The hurricane wolf accelerated and increased its speed again. Seeing this, the infantrymen suddenly realized that if they were to hook the legs of such ferocious wolves, there would be a huge impact. Tao Yuan also realized this and hurriedly shouted, "Put away your weapons." It was too late. The extremely fast hurricane wolf pack arrived in the blink of an eye. Their forelimbs hit the hooks hard. Not only were their tough bodies unharmed, but they also directly sent a large number of soldiers flying. Looking down from the sky, it could be seen that the moment the wolf cavalry and the infantrymen approached, a large number of them were instantly sent flying, and the formation was also messed up. Some of the Tiger Army soldiers were trampled by the hurricane wolves, and there were bloody holes in their chests. Even a martial master of the same level would not be able to withstand a kick from a 5th or 6th grade wolf beast, let alone a group of low-level martial disciples. Kill! Kill! The sound of killing shook the sky, and the momentum was like a rainbow. On this battlefield, the wolf cavalry hall was not the only one performing. Xiao Ziji, who was in the sentry tower, was also shooting non-stop. The cavalrymen were shot down one by one. Whoosh! The bullet flew out again and accurately hit a soldier's chest. Ahaha! Li Tian said excitedly, "Brother Snake, I hit him, I hit him." Viper's mouth twitched. "You did hit the target, but do you know how many bullets you used to hit one of them? Let's try again." Li Tian suppressed his excitement and raised the Type 88 sniper rifle. He locked onto a cavalryman and after a short period of checking, he decisively pulled the trigger. Whoosh! The stream photon bullet flew out. However, it did not hit the original target. Instead, it hit the back of Zhong Yi, who was rushing over. Li Tian, Viper, after killing a soldier, Zhong Yi turned around and bared his teeth as he roared, "Don't hit your own people." Whoosh! At this moment, another stream photon bullet shot out and swept past his eyes, directly exploding the head of a cavalryman who was rushing over from behind. Chapter 449. The 1,000 wolf riders were like an invincible sharp blade. They crushed the 20,000 cavalrymen and 10,000 infantrymen, making them unable to counterattack. Crushing. Absolutely crushing. Jun Changshao, who was sitting on the city gate tower, held his face in his hands and sang, "How lonely it is to be invincible. How empty it is to be invincible." Mayor Xie's mouth twitched. Outside the city, the sound of killing was deafening. Corpses were everywhere. Sect leader Jun still had the mood to sing leisurely. How flirtatious. However, Mayor Xia was also quite shocked. These iron-boned Sect disciples, riding on hurricane wolves, burst out with terrifying combat strength. Not to mention Tao Yuan's tiger troop, even if they faced an elite troop, they would be invincible. Especially when they knew how to use arrays. That kind of cooperation and tacit understanding were not formed overnight. Thinking of this, Xie Guangquan couldn't help but look at Shui Rengui, who was holding the war flag, and thought to himself, this person is definitely talented. Kill! Kill! The members of Wolf Rider Hall riding hurricane wolves and holding cold-edged swords seemed to have turned into killing gods, mercilessly reaping lives. Mayor Xie's hanging heart was completely at ease. Because from the current situation, Qingyang City was temporarily safe. General! A deputy general's face turned ugly. Retreat! Half of the 30,000 tiger troop had died, and their morale had plummeted. If they continued to fight, they would be wiped out in less than an hour. Damn it! Tao Yuan clenched his fists in anger. The troop that he had painstakingly cultivated was defeated by 1,000 people. This was unacceptable to him. He had to accept it even if he didn't want to. In order to not let more soldiers die, he could only say with hatred, "Retreat." Since he joined the army, this was the first time he had lost a battle, and it was in a situation where he had the advantage in numbers. Swoosh! The deputy general waved the war flag and gave the order to retreat. The soldiers of the Tiger Might army, who were in panic, immediately retreated desperately. This kind of invincible enemy made their scalps explode. They wished they could grow a few more legs and escape as fast as possible. Sect leader Shui Rengui said, "They have retreated." Xie Guangquan was overjoyed. He, who was prepared to live and die with the city, did not expect that the final result would be that the enemy would be defeated before they could even attack the city. Jun Changshao said, "You come and go as you please. Do you think my Azure Sun County is a market?" He paused for a moment and then said, "Kill them all, especially that one called Tao Yuan. Capture him alive." Yes. Shui Rengui waved the war flag again. Upon receiving the order, Zhong Yi once again led the team to charge forward. Relying on the speed of the hurricane wolves, They wiped out the enemy soldiers who attempted to escape one by one. General. The deputy general's expression changed drastically. They're too fast. There's no time to retreat. Tao Yuan shouted angrily, demonic explosive soldiers, stop them. Swoosh! Whoosh! The 500 soldiers of the Tiger Might army took out their demon explosive crossbows and loaded them with demon explosive arrows. Not good. Xie Guanquan said, explosive magic crossbow bolts. Jun Changshao smiled coldly and said, I thought they wouldn't dare to use them. Tao Yuan did not dare to use the demon explosive crossbows when the crystal core throwers were destroyed because he knew that the enemy's hidden weapons would definitely hit them and cause a series of explosions. Now that he had summoned them, he had put a lot of distance between them and the enemy. No matter how strong the hidden weapons were, they had to have a range. I don't believe that the strange stream of light can fly over from 10 miles away from the city. Whoosh! Just as Tao Yuan was thinking, a stream of light streaked across the void and finally hit the demon explosive arrow that a soldier had just loaded on his crossbow. Boom! 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 The sound of explosions was endless. Looking from the city tower, one could clearly see flames and dust rising into the sky from 10 miles away. Hiss! Hiss! The series of explosions startled the war horses, causing them to raise their heads and neighed. Their eyes were filled with fear. Although Tao Yuan was a little far from the explosion, his war horse was startled and almost fell off. This! He tried to stabilize himself, his eyes filled with disbelief. General, be careful. At this moment, the lieutenant next to him exclaimed. Tao Yuan hurriedly looked to the other side and saw Zhong Yi rushing over on the hurricane wolf in the dust. Oh no! He hurriedly wanted to ride his horse and escape, but it was too late. Zhong Yi put away the cold-edged sword and instantly approached Tao Yuan. His big hand suddenly reached out and grabbed him from the war horse as if he was holding a chicken. General! The lieutenant and the soldiers roared angrily. Zhong Yi asked the hurricane wolf to slow down and lifted Tao Yuan up. He shouted, quickly put down your weapons and surrender. Damn it! Tao Yuan wanted to resist, but when he was captured, his meridians had been sealed by the enemy. At this moment, he could only be lifted up weakly. The general was captured, and there were wolf riders behind him. The lieutenant of the Tiger Army was filled with despair. After a short period of weighing the pros and cons, he threw down his weapon. At this time, he had no choice but to surrender. Whoosh! Whoosh! The soldiers of the Tiger Army threw down their weapons one after another. The cavalrymen also stopped their horses and jumped down from them. Since they had surrendered, the members of the wolf riding hall would definitely not kill them wantonly. Therefore, they pulled out a line of defense and surrounded more than 6,000 soldiers. Ding! Defeated the Tiger Army of Xinjiang County. Meet the hidden criteria. Epic mission completion rate 30%. Host will receive 1,000 contribution points. Ding! Captured the enemy general. Meet the hidden criteria. Epic mission completion rate 50%. Host will receive 1,000 contribution points. Ding! Host has successfully defended Xinjiang City. Meet the hidden criteria. Epic mission completed. Completion rate 120%. Host will receive 4,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 9892500. Ding! Host has exceeded the requirements of the epic mission. Host will receive opening talisman X1, holy grade talent modification liquid X1, and some experience points. The system notification ended. The spiritual energy in Jun Changxiao's Dantian was undergoing a qualitative change. At the same time, the cyclone next to him also turned into spiritual energy. Whoosh! In the outside world, majestic attributes emerged from his body. Half of it was vigorous and the other half was fierce. Everyone seemed to have sensed it and looked up. Seeing Jun Changshao surrounded by the aura, they asked in surprise, "Is the sect leader about to break through?" "That's strange." Jiang Ye was puzzled. "Why is there such a big commotion?" When he broke through to Martial King, there were also signs of a breakthrough. However, compared to the sect leaders, it paled in comparison. "What a powerful sword aura!" Zhou Hong said with a serious look. Whoosh! Whoosh! At that moment, the two different types of energy gathered around Jun Changshao turned into a beam of light and flew toward the sky. It was as if they were going to soar into the clouds. Jiang Ye was dumbfounded. When he broke through to Martial King, there was no such phenomenon. Yi Xingqian said with a serious look, "Sword and Martial King, both of them will become kings. They will soar into the clouds and announce the arrival of a true king to the world." Gah! Jiang Ye was stunned and his facial muscles stiffened. "Sword and Martial King, both of them? Could it be?" he exclaimed in shock. "The sect leader is going to become the Sword and Martial King." Chapter 450. Sword and Martial King. City Lord Xia, who was standing at the side, almost fell to the ground when he heard Jiang Ye's words. His heart was in turmoil. In the Falling Star continent, there were dual cultivators who could reach the peak of both Dao and Martial King. However, this only existed in the records. City Lord Xia had never seen it before. Could it be that sect leader Jun's breakthrough today was going to broaden his horizons and make him unforgettable? Lu Chanxian's beautiful eyes were also filled with surprise. The sect leader usually only cultivated the martial Dao. When did he cultivate the sword Dao? Now that he suddenly stood on the city tower and wanted to become a sword and martial king, she was very confused and surprised. Whoosh! The two beams of light continued to pierce through the sky. No matter where one was in the Azure Sun County, as long as one raised their head, they could see the phenomenon. What is that? It feels like it's going to spread to the sky. Could it be that a treasure has appeared? Although many cultivators were confused, the more they looked at the two beams of light that shot into the sky, the more reverence they felt. Ordinary people even had the thought of worshipping. There were many martial kings and sword kings in the Falling Star continent. However, the sword and martial kings were very rare. Since they were about to descend today, everyone naturally had the urge to worship them. What was even more exaggerated was, the swords of the cultivators in the Azure Sun County trembled involuntarily as the beams of light that represented the sword Dao soared into the sky. It was as if they were cheering for the arrival of the king. What's going on? My sword doesn't seem to be listening to me anymore. Could it be because of the rising beams of light? Many cultivators were shocked. Whoosh! A figure flew out from the back mountain of the Tsang Mountain sect. It was a white-haired old man with a strong aura. He landed on the training ground and looked up at the sky. He exclaimed, "This is the sign of the sword and martial king." The elders of the Tsang Mountain sect were also alarmed. Ma Yinteng walked out first and said in surprise, "Sect leader, this place seems to be Azure Sun City." Wang Donglin was also stunned as he asked, "Since when did our Azure Sun County have a monster that can cultivate both sword and martial arts, and even become a king in both?" Speaking of evildoers, Ma Yinteng subconsciously blurted out, "Don't tell me it's Sect Master Jun." Wang Donglin agreed with this statement and said, "It's really hard to say." The growth of Jun Changshao and Iron Bone over the past year was enough to make the two of them think that they deserved the word monster. The Blue Mountain Sect's Sect Master said, "It's truly a joyous occasion that a sword and martial king has been born in our Azure Sun County. The Shangguan family." Shangguan Hong said excitedly, "I never thought that I would be able to witness the birth of the sword and martial kings in the Azure Sun County." His sons, who were standing behind him, were also in awe. Even though their cultivation wasn't too high, they had heard from their father that the Sword King and Martial King had reached such a level. Without a doubt, they were the top geniuses of the Starfall continent. He was not a genius. He was a dragon among men. On this day, Jun Changshao's breakthrough in two Daos caused a phenomenon in the sky. Vast energy filled the entire Azure Sun County, causing many cultivators to be shocked and proud. However, even further away, the phenomenon in the sky could also be seen. Various cultivators were discussing intensely. Many of them were old. When they saw the two beams of light, their hands trembled as they said, "Someone has broken through, the sword and martial kings." What? For a moment, the various cities in the counties were in an uproar. Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. According to the historical records, it has been at least 5,000 years since the sword and martial kings were born. My God, this is too sudden. Judging from the direction, it should be the 9th grade Azure Sun County. If it's really an Earth stage cultivator in the Azure Sun County who has broken through to the sword and martial kings, this county will probably rise to prominence. When the sword and martial kings pierced through the sky and could be clearly seen in several counties, it caused a huge commotion. Some people were confused. Why would a sword and martial king be born so suddenly? Some people were discussing. If there was really such a powerful person in the Azure Sun County, their social status would definitely increase greatly. In Heian County, Huayang County, and Zhenyang County, the army was working hard to attack the cities. When the phenomenon appeared, the soldiers looked up and forgot that they were at war. "Commander." A strategist frowned and said, "This is the sign of the arrival of the sword and martial kings." Bai Ruihu, the commander of the White Tiger Army, who was ordered to attack the three counties, walked out of his tent and said with a frown, "It seems to be the location of Azure Sun City. General Tao just sent troops over, and the sword and martial kings were born." "I'm afraid this is a bad omen," the strategist said. He guessed wrong. Before this phenomenon appeared, Tao Yuan and his Tiger Might army were already unknown. The arrival of the sword and martial kings in the Azure Sun County made Bai Ruihu realize that something was wrong. He immediately ordered, "Contact General Tao and ask him to return immediately." Yes. Whoosh whoosh, the two beams of light pierced through the sky. Jun Changshao, who was standing on the city gate tower, closed his eyes and felt the changes in his body. The spiritual energy in his spiritual core was much purer than before. The second spiritual core was also filled with boundless spiritual energy. There was only one word to describe it: awesome. The system muttered, "Isn't this epic mission 4 a little too easy?" From its point of view, it would at least have to face the main force of the White Tiger Army in the true Sun County and defend Azure Sun City. In fact, the epic mission's appearance was also meant to be like this. However, Tao Yuan would choose to surround the other cities in Azure Sun City and attack Azure Sun City first. Thus, he fulfilled the mission requirement. The Wolf Rider Hall defeated the Tiger Army and captured the enemy's general. Not only did they meet the hidden requirement, but they also completed the defense mission. It was fate. The phenomenon of the two beams of light piercing through the sky lasted for more than 10 minutes. When the energy in Jun Changxiao's spiritual core was completely converted, it suddenly disappeared. Clang! Clang! The moment the light beam disappeared, countless swords were unsheathed in Qingyang City, which was the closest to Jun Changxiao. Then, they turned into streams of light and flew out, hovering above Jun Changxiao. Awesome! Su Xiaoma opened his eyes wide. The Iron Bone disciples looked at him with even more admiration. Whoosh! Jun Changxiao opened his eyes and murmured, "Sword and martial arts, I am the king." Wang! Wang! The swords around him vibrated violently as if they were responding to their king. Congratulations, Sect leader Jun, for becoming the sword and martial king. Mayor Xia cupped his fists and said. The storm in his heart didn't calm down because of the disappearance of the phenomenon. After all, the scene of thousands of swords was still shocking him. Sect leader is mighty, Sect leader is mighty. The Iron Bone disciples shouted in unison, echoing in the sky above Azure Sun City. On this day, the sword and martial king had arrived in Azure Sun County of Yangzhou. In the annals of history, it would definitely leave a heavy mark for future generations to worship. Chapter 451. Since Jun Changshao had broken through to the Sword and Martial King realm, the discussions of the various provinces and counties would definitely not stop. Many forces and clans would also begin to investigate the person who had broken through to the Sword and Martial King realm in Qingyang County. After enjoying the pleasure of breaking through, Sect leader Jun looked at the forest outside the city and saw the dumbfounded Martial King of Xinjiang County. At first, this person was evenly matched with Jiangye in the forest. However, when the momentum of the breakthrough spread, he was deeply shocked and no longer had the mood to fight. Elder Jiang hurriedly used the cloud-treading steps and landed on the city gate tower. He happened to witness the whole process of the two beams of light shooting into the sky. I won't say that I forgot that Jiangye was still fighting with someone, so I was quick-witted. Old man. Jun Chang smiled and said, how about the two of us fight? Because he had broken through to the Sword and Martial King realm, his voice was filled with the aura of a king. Martial disciple, martial master, and Wuzong were, after all, only low-middle level. The Martial King realm was a huge dividing line. It would change in all aspects, including voice and aura. The Martial King of Xinjiang County frowned. He definitely wouldn't care about a Martial King who had just broken through. However, this was a newly born Sword and Martial King. Who in the Falling Star continent didn't know that the Sword and Martial King's battle prowess was above that of Martial King and Martial King? Swoosh! Jun Changshao jumped and flew out of the city gate tower. The increase in his strength led to the increase in his movement technique. His jump gave people the feeling that he was about to fly. Ta! He landed steadily in front of the Martial King and said, do you want to use your fist or your sword? The Martial King of Xinjiang County's mouth twitched violently. If I use my fist, you're a Martial King. If I use my sword, you're a Sword King. How the hell am I supposed to choose? This was the advantage of the Sword and Martial King. They could fight however they wanted. Sect leader Jun, the Martial King, said coldly, Xinjiang County has lost this battle. I'll take my leave first. Facing a Sword and Martial King made him feel very guilty. No. Jun Changshao said, you must fight with me. If you win, General Tao can take him away. Not fighting. Forcing you to fight. Needless to say, Xinjiang County's King Wu was immediately tempted when he finished his last sentence. His mission in attacking Qingyang City was to protect Tao Yuan. Now that he had been captured by the enemy, he would surely be held accountable if he were to return alone. If that's the case. He made up his mind and said, I'll meet the Sword and Martial Kings today. With your fist, or with your sword? Fist. In a small forest outside Qingyang City. Jun Changshao and King Wu of the Xinjiang County were about 20 meters apart. Jiangye was the only spectator at a close distance. The Iron Bone disciples were all standing on the city wall and watching from afar. Sect Master Jun, you're fighting a Martial King right after breaking through. You're truly valiant. Xie Guanquan said in admiration. Jun Changshao said, can we start now? King Wu of the Xinjiang County got into a fighting stance and thought to himself, although this kid is a Sword and Martial King, he just broke through. I'm a rank 4 Martial King, so I should be able to fight him. From the word should, it was clear that he didn't have much confidence. There was nothing he could do. The Sword and Martial Kings were famous. Without a high-rank Martial King, it would be difficult to face them. Whoosh whoosh. Jun Changshao unleashed his cultivation, and a dense aura instantly spread out. King Wu of the Xinjiang County hurriedly said, Sect Master Jun, we agreed to use your fist. Don't use your sword. Jun Changshao said, don't worry. I won't need to use my sword to deal with a Martial King like you. The Xinjiang County's Martial King was furious. You're a Sword and Martial King. You're awesome, but you can't look down on others like this. Whoosh whoosh. In his anger, he also unleashed his cultivation. Although his aura was quite strong, there was a clear gap between him and Sect Master Jun in terms of aura and purity. Jiangye said in surprise, Sect Master has just broken through. Why is his aura so dense? That was because he had 2 spirit cores in his dantian. If they were unleashed together, it would definitely be stronger than a single spirit core. With 2 spirit cores, Jun Changxiao's aura was not only dense, but his endurance was also strong. Even though he had just broken through and was evenly matched with the rank 4 martial king in front of him, he could still exhaust his opponent with his boundless spiritual energy. It could be said that our sect master Jun not only had the advantage of being a sword and martial king, he also had the advantage of having 2 spirit cores. He was definitely worthy of being called a monster. Old man. Jun Changxiao said, I'm going to make my move. The more he said this, the more uncertain King Wu of the Xinyang County felt. Whoosh! Suddenly, Jun Changxiao used the cloud-treading steps and rushed over. He was so fast that it was as if he had crushed a gallop talisman. Not good. King Wu of the Xinyang County's martial king's expression changed slightly. In the next second, he put his hands in front of his body to block and condensed a dense spiritual energy wall around him. Boom, the sound of an explosion was heard and waves of energy surged out. Jun Changxiao appeared in front of him and punched with his right fist. Not only did it break the spiritual energy wall, it also landed on King Wu's arm. One could faintly see ripples in the air. Thump! 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 King Wu of the Xinyang County was pushed back. When he stabilized his body with great difficulty, his eyes were filled with shock. The strength of this punch was at least 2.5 million jin. He had just broken through and already had such terrifying strength. This person was definitely a supreme rank martial king. No, a supreme rank sword and martial king. Whoosh! Jun Changxiao appeared in front of King Wu again and slapped him with his big hand. It seemed to be an understatement, but the strength it contained was increasing steadily. When it hit King Wu's right shoulder, it had already exceeded 3 million jin. King Wu of the Xinyang County was only an advanced rank for martial king and his strength was only 2.5 million. He was sent flying and crashed into more than 20 trees. Wah! When he landed, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Xie Guangquan, who was on the city gate tower, saw this and his mouth twitched violently. That was a genuine martial king, but he was beaten up by Sect Master Jun who had just broken through. Damn it! King Wu of the Xinyang County tried his best to stand up. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and opened his hands abruptly. He quickly gathered the elements of heaven and earth around him. Jun Changxiao said, are you going to use your trump card? Whoosh! Whoosh! Soon, the elements of heaven and earth gathered in King Wu's hands from all directions. They formed a bright ball of light formed by 3 different elements. This is, Jiangya frowned slightly and said, high-rank 3-point origin gathering technique. Whoosh! Whoosh! The ball of light gathered in King Wu's hands became stronger and stronger. Jun Changxiao stood in place, unmoved. His eyes were filled with disdain. In the past, it was others who looked down on him. Now that he had become a sword and martial king, he was looking down on a rank 4 martial king. Ta! King Wu of the Xinyang County took a step forward and shouted with his eyes wide open, 3-point origin gathering technique. Whoosh! The ball of energy formed by the 3 elements of heaven and earth was thrown forward with great force. For a moment, a strong wind blew and the grass and trees flew everywhere. Xie Guangquan, who was far away, was shocked. He thought to himself, if it was me, I wouldn't be able to survive even if I had 10 lives. When he looked at Jun Changxiao again, he saw that he was still standing in place. He looked like a high and mighty king. Could it be that he was going to take it head-on? Chapter 452. The tripartite origin gathering technique was a very profound spiritual power martial technique. When a martial artist used it, they would extract 3 types of origin energy from the heaven and earth to gather powerful energy. This martial king from the Xinyang County had already comprehended it to perfection. After a simple accumulation of energy, he used it. As for how powerful it was, there was no need to describe it in terms of weight to prevent the readers from ridiculing it. In short, it was very powerful. It was so powerful that when it flew over, the trees that were relatively far away were uprooted by the wind. Jiang Xie furrowed his brows. Although he had broken through to the third rank of martial king and had entered the extreme level of cultivation in the sect, he still wasn't confident that he could take this move head-on. The sect leader stood in place. Was he going to take it head-on? Whoosh! At this moment, Jun Changshao raised his hand. Dense spiritual power spread out from his body and quickly formed a solid defensive air wall in front of him. After breaking through to the martial king level, one's control over spiritual power would be more perfect and they would be able to develop the ability to condense air walls. There was also another very important function. When one's thoughts turned into spiritual thoughts, they could see everything around them. When the condensed light attacked, Jun Changshao used his spiritual thoughts to capture it. The strength of the power was within his tolerance range, so he decisively formed an air wall. Martial King, this feels so good. Whoosh! The tripartite origin gathering technique shot over while sticking close to the grass. In the end, it crashed into the air wall with a boom. The powerful explosion instantly formed a wave that surged in all directions. Flowers, trees, and stones were instantly crushed into powder by the terrifying power. Looking from the city tower, the area where Jun Changshao was standing was completely bare. Even the ground had cracked. Terrifying. Xie Guangquan sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, he was more concerned about whether sect leader Jun was alright or not. Gradually, the spiritual power dissipated and the collision area was clearly visible. The solid air wall was still there. Jun Changshao was still standing proudly. The corner of his mouth even raised into a smile that deserved a beating. No, impossible. The martial king from the Xinjiang county widened his eyes. He had even unleashed his trump card, yet he still hadn't been able to break his opponent's air wall. Just how much spiritual energy did he have to be able to do that? So, these are the sword and martial kings? Jiang Xie was shocked as well. Yi Xingqian thought to himself, he just broke through. He shouldn't have such abundant spiritual energy. Even one of the 10 great martial emperors could not figure it out. Jun Changshao waved his hand to remove the psionic energy wall and said, I've shown my trump card. Now, I'm going to get serious. After saying the last word, he used the cloud-treading steps and sped away. His speed was so fast that even Xinjiang County's King Wu didn't have time to set up a spiritual energy wall in front of him. In fact, it was useless to set things up. Under Jun Changshao's 3 million gene of strength, the only thing he could do was to find a way to be completely destroyed. Boom! 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 In the forest, the sound of fists could be heard frequently. In just a few moments, Jun Changshao relied on his absolute strength to beat King Wu of Xinjiang County. King Wu fell to the ground, his limbs twitching and white foam coming out of his mouth. Everyone's mouth twitched. Such a high and mighty martial king was actually beaten so miserably. It was truly unimaginable. Could it be that the sword and martial kings were really that powerful? They didn't know that the reason why sect leader Jun could beat a rank 4 martial king was not only because of the sword and martial kings, but also because he had 2 spirit cores. Although they couldn't double the effect, they still increased his strength by quite a bit. For example, the 3 parts essence gathering art that attacked just now. If Jun Changshao had 1 spirit core, he could have withstood it. However, the psionic energy wall would definitely have been broken, and he wouldn't have been able to withstand it unscathed. A battle between martial kings ended just like that. King Wu of Xinjiang County, who was beaten up, not only did he fail to take Tao Yuan away, he also inevitably became a prisoner. Qingyang City, on the drill ground. The surrendered soldiers of the Tiger Army squatted together with their hands on their heads. Sect leader Shui Rengui said, "What should we do with these people? If we can get them to surrender, then do so. If we can't, then let Xinjiang County pay the ransom," Jun Changshao said. A rising star with the talent of a general, a genuine rank for Martial King, was definitely worth a lot of money. Shui Rengui said, Tao Yuan comes from a family of generals. I'm afraid it'll be a bit difficult to get him to surrender. Jun Changshao said indifferently, there's no one I can't get to surrender. If there is, then give him a bowl of fried rice. If not, then give him 2 bowls. Shui Rengui thought of Lu Wancher's cooking, and the word delicious immediately appeared in his mind. General Tao. Jun Changshao walked over and said, Are you convinced of your loss? Tao Yuan, who was tied up, was silent for a while, then said, I'm convinced. He lost too miserably in this battle. The Tiger Army was also completely crushed by the Wolf Cavalry. He was absolutely convinced. Jun Changshao said, My Iron Bone Army needs a lot of talents. Are you interested in joining? Tao Yuan raised his head with difficulty and said, Sect leader Jun, although I'm not a big shot, I will never surrender to the enemy. General Tao. Jun Changshao was not discouraged. He said, You misunderstood. I mean, join my Iron Bone school. What's the difference between this and surrendering to the enemy? Tao Yuan said coldly. There's a difference. Jun Changshao said, I'll ask General Tao first. Do you belong to any sect or sect? I don't belong to any sect or sect. Tao Yuan said. Jun Changshao said, although you're a general of Xinjiang County, you don't belong to any sect or sect. Why can't you join my Iron Bone school? There was nothing wrong with that. However, Tao Yuan said, You're guarding Qingyang City with your disciples, so you're my enemy. Joining your school is the same as surrendering to the enemy. No, no, no. Jun Changshao said, I'm guarding Qingyang City because it's my home. If Xinjiang County didn't attack, I wouldn't have participated. Now that you've failed, my Iron Bone school will stay out of this. We're not enemies, so it's reasonable for me to join your school. We'll talk about it later. Jun Changshao said again, joining my Iron Bone school is just a disciple. It's not like I'm asking you to lead troops to fight against Xinjiang County. Xie Guangquan's mouth twitched. Sect leader Jun's mouth was really coquettish. Tao Yuan was also stunned. After thinking about it carefully, it seemed to make sense. General Tao. The Martial King from Xinjiang County said weakly, You can kill me, but you can't humiliate me, bang. 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 Jun Changshao punched him until he fainted. He clapped his hands and said, General Tao, I'll give you some time to think about it. Then he said, Mayor Xia, lock these captives in the dungeon. Okay. Xie Guangquan immediately ordered Tao Yuan, that Martial King, and the thousands of captive Tiger Army soldiers to be locked in the dungeon. Sect leader Jun, he cupped his hands and said gratefully, If it wasn't for your school's help, my Qingyang City would have fallen long ago. Jun Changshao said, Don't be happy too early. This is just the vanguard. Xinjiang County's army is still in Heian County and Huayang County. Xie Guangquan's expression immediately became serious. That's right. Xinjiang County only sent 30,000 men. There were more than 100,000 soldiers behind them. Chapter 453. Although Jun Changshao had completed his epic mission, the crisis in Qingyang City and the entire Qingyang County had not been resolved because the main invader was the White Tiger Legion. Miao Hui's cavalry and Tao Yuan's Tiger Legion were just 2 of them. Therefore, sect leader Jun did not bring his disciples back to Iron Bone and continued to stay in Qingyang City to help the 3.6 million people resist the invasion. Becoming a sword and martial king gave him more confidence to face the 6th grade Xinjiang County. Iron Bone continued to stay in Qingyang City, and Xie Guangquan was almost moved to tears. At night, a banquet was held in the city tower. After 3 rounds of wine, he thanked Jun Changshao with tears and snot. He was so emotional that he almost knelt down to thank Jun Changshao. Thank you, City Lord. Jun Changshao tugged at him and said, This Jun has already said that Green Sun City is my home. I won't tolerate outsiders bullying it. Come. He raised his wine cup and said, don't say anything. Everything is in the wine. Drink. Xie Guangquan drank a lot that night and was very drunk. In the end, he held an empty wine jar and danced on the city tower. Jun Changshao quietly looked at the cute city lord Xia, who was drunk, and took out the Saint-grade aptitude modifying liquid from his interspatial ring. Not only did the epic mission allow him to become a sword and martial king, but it also gave him an opening talisman and a bottle of Saint-grade aptitude modifying liquid. This was undoubtedly very satisfying. Paw! He opened it and drank it. Ding! Congratulations, host, your spirit root has improved from supreme grade to saint grade. An improvement in spirit root's aptitude was undoubtedly like a complete rebirth. However, with the help of the aptitude modifying liquid, it easily reached the level of saint grade spirit root. It was really unbelievable. Strange. Jun Changshao muttered, my spirit root has improved, but why does it feel like there is no change? The system said, does the host feel that there should be an increase of 1 million kilograms of strength for there to be a change? That's right. Wash up and sleep. You can do it in your dreams. Fuck. Jun Changshao cursed, then rubbed his hands and pulled out the system store. There were many things to do during the day. Now that he was free, he naturally had to spend all the 4,892 contribution points that he had. No need to consider it. Starting from the mid-tier mall. Previously, in order to test his 5 luck points, he only dared to use the basic merchant shop to test it. Now that he had more contribution points, he finally had the confidence to do so. He pulled down the shopping center. Ding! Sect contribution points, 9792500. A brand new product was presented, and Jun Changshao happily flipped through it. The first product that caught his eye was called, Sect Equipment Device. According to the detailed introduction, it was made up of 5 parts, the weapon machine, the equipment machine, the martial skill machine, the pill machine, and the treasure machine. Its function was that it could be connected to the host's spatial ring. With just a thought, all kinds of things could be allocated to the host for the disciple to collect. It was similar to a vending machine in the disciple's shop, but it was more detailed. Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, the refined weapons, equipment, or pills have to be personally handed over to the disciples. With this thing, they can receive it themselves. Bye. Ding. The host has spent 1,000 contribution points and received the Sect's equipment X1. It has been transferred into the spatial ring. Ding. Sect contribution points, 8792500. Jun Changshao continued to read. Soon, he saw a defensive martial skill called Spirit Armor. The quality was not too high, only at the middle level of the best quality. However, if one cultivated it successfully, they could turn their spirit energy into armor and wear it on their body, forming a powerful defense. This is good stuff. Sect leader Jun's eyes immediately lit up. The seal shield was also a defensive martial skill, but its function was to form a defensive shield in front of the body. During this period, one could not attack, or the defensive shield would lose its effect. To put it bluntly, it was to turn oneself into an egg. It could withstand attacks, but it could not extend its hand to fight. Therefore, when the members of the Wolf Rider Hall fought with the Tiger Might army, no one would use it, because it was just a moving eggshell. Spirit armor was different. Using spiritual energy to form an armor in front of him, he would be fully armed while still being able to attack without being affected at all. Buy. He spent 1,000 contribution points to buy spirit armor. The system automatically matched the sect's cultivation technique, and sect leader Jun copied another 5,000 books in one go. This was because the sect's equipment machine had not been taken out yet. Otherwise, with just a thought, it would automatically be equipped with the martial skill machine. Jun Changshao continued to read. Soon, his gaze stopped on an item called Beginner Grade Spiritual Medicine. All the middle-level shops were middle-level. This was the first time he saw a beginner grade item. He clicked on the details. Item: Beginner Grade Spiritual Medicine. Introduction: It is said that Taishang Lao Jun used the divine fire of 6-in, one of the 4 great heavenly fires, to refine a miraculous elixir. Note: a failed product. Effect: it can cure all kinds of difficult and miscellaneous diseases. Disadvantage: because it is a failed product, it can only cure martial artists below the martial king realm. Price: 1,000 contribution points. Fuck. Jun Changshao said in surprise, a failed product refined by Taishang Lao Jun. The system said, that's just a rumor. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, unfortunately, it can only be used on martial artists below the martial king realm. Otherwise, I would definitely buy one to help Elder Wei treat his difficult and miscellaneous diseases. So, it's useless. The system said, the host doesn't have to buy it. Jun Changshao thought so too. He continued to read. Suddenly, he thought of something and muttered, it should be able to cure Palace Master Shi's eye disease, right? The system said, the Palace Master of Miaohua Palace is a 9th level Wuzong. She meets the treatment requirements. It was Jun Changshao's first time hearing about Shi Jingshuan's cultivation. He couldn't help but say in surprise, she's only in her early 20s, but she's already so strong. If she wasn't the leader of a sect, she would probably be ranked in the Gathering of Heroes list. Reaching the 9th level Wuzong at the age of 20 would not only be ranked in the list, but also in the heaven class. Should I buy one for her? Jun Changshao muttered. He was very conflicted because it was worth 1,000 contribution points. If he bought it, there would definitely be a bunch of readers cursing him for being a saint. Forget it. I'll keep it for now. Jun Changshao continued to browse through the items and saw 2 more martial arts techniques. One was a soft palm technique. It was a beginner-grade supreme-grade technique, suitable for women to cultivate. The other one was more special. It was called the clear heart technique. Although it was a mental cultivation technique, it was only used to stabilize one's state of mind, making it easier to focus on cultivation and not be distracted by distracting thoughts. The Iron Bone Palace lacked all kinds of martial arts techniques. Since Sect Master Jun didn't lack contribution points, he bought them with 2,000 contribution points and made 5,000 copies of each technique. After spending 9,892 contribution points, he was left with 5,642 contribution points. There was no other way. With contribution points, he could do whatever he wanted. Jun Changshao took back the store and opened the purchased items. He directly bought 20 bottles of aptitude-modifying liquid. This was a reward for the wolf riders who performed well in the previous battle. Zhong Yi's performance was also very good. He even captured the general alive. I can reward him with a bottle of aptitude-modifying liquid. Jun Changshao muttered. He had 6 bottles now. He couldn't decide who to give it to, so he could only give it to them based on performance. If there was a punishment system, Li Tianshan, who accidentally shot Zhong Yi, would definitely be in trouble. The next day, Jun Changshao gathered all the disciples in Qingyang City early in the morning and taught them the defensive martial arts technique, Spirit Armor. The Wolf Rider Hall members who performed well on the battlefield also received the aptitude-modifying liquid. After taking it, they all improved from mortal grade to intermediate grade. As expected, they were all dumbfounded. Zhong Yi, who had advanced from high grade to supreme grade, was also dumbfounded. Su Xiaomo walked over and patted him on the shoulder. Junior brother Zhong, don't be agitated. This is just a normal thing. Chapter 454. After receiving the martial arts technique, the Iron Bone disciples began to cultivate it. They first cultivated the clear heart technique. Once this technique was activated, their state of mind was indeed much more stable. Everyone had 7 emotions and 6 desires. Apart from those with great perseverance, they would more or less be distracted when cultivating or doing things, or be disturbed by external things. The clear heart technique was used to clear all distracting thoughts and stabilize the state of mind. As long as the state of mind was calm, the comprehension of martial arts would definitely be faster. In the temporary residence arranged by City Lord Xia, Jun Changshao circulated a few large and small circulations and muttered, "Activating the clear heart technique can make concealment of spirit and qi faster. This is good stuff." Moreover, this technique could not only be used to comprehend martial arts, but also to comprehend martial arts techniques after activating it. It was a very versatile auxiliary technique. The Iron Bone disciples also realized this, so they focused on comprehending the clear heart technique. A few days later, on the training field of the military camp, several Iron Bone disciples released their psionic energy, forming a cloud-like aura that gradually covered their bodies and condensed into a looming armor. Martial arts technique, Spirit Kai. After using it, not only did they put on armor, but they also condensed a helmet. They were just short of equipping their teeth. This kind of defensive martial arts technique was easy to learn but difficult to master. Even if they comprehended it successfully, the strength of their defense would depend on their psionic energy. The few Iron Bone disciples who tested were only rank 2 or 3 martial masters. They could only form an illusory armor, unable to materialize it. Whoosh whoosh. Xiao Ziji walked over and released his psionic energy. Majestic attributes whizzed out and condensed into an armor as quickly as possible. He threw a few punches and said, "It's not affected at all." "Oh my god! Senior brother Zhao's armor is so strong." Several disciples surrounded him enviously. Xiao Ziji, who was at the peak of martial master, had higher psionic energy than his junior brother. His armor was close to materializing. He stood on the training field like a brave general. At this moment, Su Xiaomao walked out and said in surprise, "Junior brother Xiao, isn't your armor too cool?" He also used Spirit Kai. However, standing next to Xiao Ziji, he was obviously weaker. Li Fei, Tian Qi, and the others also walked over one after another. They displayed their Spirit Kai with great interest. After a final comparison, whether it was in terms of materialization or form, there was still a slight gap between them and Xiao Ziji. Perhaps this had something to do with the fact that Xiao Ziji majored in physical strength. Extremely boring. Yi Xingchen, who was sitting on top of the city wall, looked at the people below him testing their martial techniques. A hint of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. Ling Kai had also learned it, but he did not take it to heart. What he truly cared about was the heart-calming mantra. This sort of mental cultivation technique that stabilized the mind was just too helpful for martial arts. Even Zhou Hong cultivated it because it could help him calm down and comprehend the sword Dao better. While guarding the Azure Sun City, the disciples were still immersed in cultivating their martial skills, causing Xie Guanquan to sigh inwardly, "No wonder the Iron Bone is so strong, the disciples are very diligent in their cultivation." After the Tiger Might army was defeated, the enemy army in Heian County and Huayang County did not make any movements, giving Jun Changshao quite a bit of time. Tao Yuan, who was reduced to a prisoner, was a little tragic. He was locked in a cage and was not given any food. Once he was hungry, he starved for 3 days. Every time Jun Changshao ended his cultivation, he would come over to chat. The topic was not to persuade him to surrender, but to explain the delicious food on the tip of his tongue. He was starving, yet he talked about delicious food. He had never seen such a despicable person. What was even more despicable was Jun Changshao even called Lu Wancher over. He set up the stove in the prison and explained every step of cooking with deep emotions. Even the most ordinary stir-fried cabbage, under his influence, emitted the fragrance of thyme. Tao Yuan could only remain silent, and continue to remain silent. Even if he was starving, as a soldier, he could not be tempted by delicious food and waver his will. Sect Master Jun was not in a hurry. As long as he had time, he would continue to explain the delicious food on the tip of his tongue. Night. The sky was filled with stars. Jun Changshao lay on the roof of the city tower and looked up at the full moon. He muttered, "I miss home." These few days, he had been explaining to Tao Yuan about delicious food. Most of it was Chinese Shandong cuisine, Sichuan cuisine, etc. So it was inevitable that he would look up at the moon and lower his head to miss home. I wonder if anyone still remembers me. Jun Changshao bitterly mocked himself, I have no family and few friends. Who would remember me? Suddenly, he realized that he had nothing to worry about on Earth. Why should he be so stubborn? Couldn't he just live peacefully in the other world? Besides, he was the leader of a sect and had many disciples. Although they were not relatives, they were teachers and friends. It was not bad for them to grow together happily. Xiao Little Long Long jumped over from the city wall and landed beside Jun Changshao. Then, it shrank its head and laid beside its master. Because of the beast pill, the little fellow's appetite problem was solved, so it rarely appeared recently. Jun Changshao patted its little red head and said, when can you grow up? Goo goo. Little Long Long let out a strange cry and lazily closed its eyes. Jun Changshao shook his head and turned to look at the northernmost city wall. His gaze locked onto Lu Qianshan, who was dressed in white. This woman had been standing there for a while. Sect leader Jun, who had been releasing his spiritual senses, had long noticed her. What was she thinking? Lu Qianshan was thinking about the clear heart art. This kind of mental cultivation method could stabilize one's state of mind. It was very helpful for her to comprehend the Taishan ice heart art. A few days later, sect leader Jun noticed that the ice mountain girl, who was originally a little melted, was getting colder and colder day by day. It's so cold. Walking in front of her fellow disciples, everyone couldn't help but shiver. Sect leader. One day, Lu Qianshan came to see him and said, the war is over. I'm going out to train. After cultivating the clear heart art, her slightly turbulent state of mind gradually moved towards the level of heart like still water. Therefore, she was eager to go to Lu Prefecture in the northeast. Okay. Jun Changshao didn't object. The two of them, one standing on the city wall and the other below, were more than 10 meters away from each other. However, they didn't speak after exchanging words. The atmosphere was slightly awkward. Sect leader. At this moment, Li Luoqiu, who was in the iron bone, transmitted her voice. Something happened. What happened? Jun Changshao asked. Li Luoqiu said, our spies sent news that the sects of Xinjiang County brought many experts to Blue Mountain Sect. It seems that they want to cause trouble. Cause trouble? Jun Changshao frowned slightly. The sects of Xinjiang County going to Blue Mountain Sect should be related to this war. If it were me and I wanted to attack a certain county, I would naturally have to make arrangements for the influential forces in the county. Elder Jiang, Hall Master Shua. Jun Changshao jumped down from the city wall and said, you are responsible for protecting Qingyang City. Qianshan, Xingchen. He added, follow me to Blue Mountain Sect. The little dragon, who was sleeping, woke up and jumped onto its master's shoulder. Whoa! The Hurricane Wolf King was summoned. Jun Changshao jumped on it and led Lu Qianshan and Yixingchen to Blue Mountain Sect. Chapter 455. Everything was just as Jun Changshao had guessed. If the Xinjiang County wanted to attack a county, they would definitely send people to arrange for the major powers in the county to attack. The major sects and great evil sects in Heiang and Huayang counties had also made arrangements. Thus, when the war came, they all chose to seal their mountains and ignore the requests of the city lords. How did they arrange it? It was very simple. They brought people to cause trouble. The two fifth-rate sects in Heiang County were beaten up by the experts sent by the Xinjiang County. Although the injuries weren't fatal, they were all injured. Even if they really wanted to do something for the county, they couldn't do anything because the main forces of their sects were injured. The two counties were clearly arranged. Since the Xinjiang County had the ambition to annex the Qingyang County, they would naturally make arrangements for the Blue Mountain Sect. The old method. They sent experts to challenge the Blue Mountain Sect openly. Moreover, they sent 3 martial kings and more than 20 wuzong. They stood on the Blue Mountain Sect's training field with their chests puffed out proudly. Sect Master Yu. An old man in his 60s or 70s sneered, "We haven't seen each other for at least 50 years, right?" He was called Shui Tingfeng. He was the first elder of the fourth-rate spirit stream sect in Jinyang County. He was also the leader of the troublemakers. In the main hall, the Blue Mountain sect master, who was wearing a loose robe, frowned and said, "You and I were at the same level back then. I didn't expect you to be a martial king now." Ha ha ha. Shui Tingfeng laughed and said, "I'm from a sixth-rate county and a fourth-rate sect. Isn't it normal for me to become a martial king?" He and the Blue Mountain sect master were old acquaintances. They had once fought in the largest sect competition held in southwest Yangzhou. At that time, both of them were Wuzong and were equally matched. In the end, they lost to Sect Master Yu. Until today. Shui Tingfeng had not only become a martial king, but also a fourth-rate martial king. Not to mention Jinyang County, he could be considered a top expert in the entire southwest Yangzhou. Elder Shui. Another martial king beside him grinned and said, "The aura of the Blue Mountain sect master is only at the peak of Wuzong. You lost to him back then." He was Zhuang, an elder of the Spirit Stream sect. Although his name was ordinary, he was a rank 3 martial king. As for the other martial king, he came from the fourth-rate Duanshui Pavilion of the Jinyang County. His cultivation was only that of a rank 1 martial king. More than 20 Wuzong experts were from the Spirit Stream sect and the Duanshui Pavilion respectively. Their strength was at the 8th or 9th level. They stood on the martial arts practice field and released their auras without restraint, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Ma Yunting, Wang Donglin, and the other elders standing behind sect leader Yu all frowned. These people did not come with good intentions. Shui Tingfeng did not beat around the bush and said bluntly, "We came to Tsang Mountain sect this time to ask about martial arts. Seek guidance on martial arts." Sect leader Yu sneered and said, "Jinyang County's army of 200,000 is currently attacking Heian County and Huayang County. I'm afraid you're here under orders." The Tsongshan sect had also heard about what had happened outside. Many times, they had even discussed whether they should help or close the mountain gates when the enemy forces invaded Qingyang County. In the end, before they could reach an agreement, Jinyang County had already sent someone over to make arrangements. "You can say that." Shui Tingfeng did not hide anything and said, "Our county chief's intention is to wait for the army to arrive, then close the mountain gates and pretend that we don't know or see anything." Sect leader Yu sneered, "Has your Spirit Stream sect already submitted to the county chief of Jinyang County?" Factions had no direct relationship with counties. For example, although the county chief of Jinyang County could control 8 cities, he had no authority over a sect or even a large sect like the Tsongshan sect. County Chief Zhua has great ambitions. Our Spirit Stream sect is naturally willing to assist him and help him achieve great feats, Shui Tingfeng said. Sect leader Yu said indifferently, "The county chief of Jinyang County has ignored the treaty and repeatedly declared war on the surrounding counties, causing countless lives to be destroyed. You're helping the evildoer." Ha ha ha. Shui Tingfeng laughed and said, "The so-called treaty exists in name only. Which county in southwest Yangzhou doesn't have ulterior motives? County Chief Zhua's campaign this time is to establish a stronger system so that the people of the small counties can live a stable life." Bullshit. Ma Yinting could not help but say angrily, "Heian City and Huayang City were attacked by you and then massacred. Is this what you call a stable life?" Shui Tingfeng said without changing his expression, "They chose to resist, so they must pay the price. Jinyang County only needs people who are loyal to Jinyang County." Sect leader Yu said coldly, "If we're not on the same page, then it's pointless to say anything more. Everyone, please leave." Shui Tingfeng smiled coldly and said, "Sect leader Yu, we came all the way here to learn martial arts. Is your Tsongshan sect going to refuse?" Ma Yinting said, 3 martial kings came here not to learn martial arts but to bully the weak, right?" Shui Tingfeng smiled and said, "You can think of it that way." At first, he was still polite, but now, he was just short of directly saying that they were here to cause trouble. Sect leader Yu and the elders were furious. The two fourth-rate sects of Xinjiang County had gone too far. Ma Yinting. At this moment, a middle-aged man walked out, pointed at him and said, "Do you dare to come down and fight with me?" This was an outer elder of the Spirit Stream sect. His cultivation had reached the peak of Wuzong. He could not stand Ma Yinting's words, so he decided to start with him. After Jun Changxiao's guidance, although Elder Ma had broken through to Wuzong, he had just entered the 3rd grade. He definitely could not defeat a peak Wuzong. "I'll fight with you." Wang Donglin jumped and landed on the martial arts field. His strength was at the peak of Wuzong, so he could fight with the outer elder of the Spirit Stream sect. The expert surnamed Luo strode forward and said proudly, "Please." Whoosh! 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 While the experts of the two sects of Xinjiang County were causing trouble at Songshan sect, Jun Changxiao was riding on the Hurricane Wolf King with Lu Qianqian and Yi Xingqian. 4 hours later, the three of them arrived at Songshan Mountain, but they did not see any disciples guarding the gate. "Let's go." Jun Changxiao directly rode the Hurricane Wolf King up the mountain road. He jumped and flew over the gate of Songshan sect and landed in the outer courtyard. Boom! At this moment, a loud sound was heard, and Ma Yinting was sent flying. Jun Changxiao, who had just stabilized himself, used his spiritual sense to catch Elder Ma in advance. He immediately used the cloud-treading steps to fly up and catch Elder Ma. Ha! The experts of the Spirit Stream sect and Duanshui Pavilion looked at him in surprise. Who was this person? He was riding on the Hurricane Wolf King. Thud! Jun Changxiao landed on the ground, holding Ma Yinting. There was a palm print on his chest, and his face was unusually pale. Obviously, he was seriously injured. Outside the martial arts field, Wang Donglin, who was the first to fight, was being supported by a disciple. It was obvious that he had lost the fight with martial artist Luo. Sect. Sect leader, as soon as Ma Yinting opened his mouth, he could not suppress the blood in his body. He directly spat out blood and fainted. This kind old man had stopped others from disturbing his epiphany when he was recruited by the 100 sects. He had also helped the Iron Bone many times, so their relationship was very good. Now that he was knocked unconscious, how could Jun Changxiao accept it? He gently put Ma Yinting on the ground, then raised his head and glanced at the experts of the two sects of Xinjiang County. He murderously said, "Since you're here, don't go back." Chapter 456. Whoosh whoosh. Jun Changxiao's body emitted a heavy aura that instantly filled the entire outer courtyard of Tsang Mountain sect. Ma Yinting had fainted. These so-called experts from the two sects of Xinjiang County must take full responsibility for this. "This is," Wang Donglin said in surprise, "the aura of a martial king." Although sect leader Yu had never met Jun Changxiao, he knew his identity from Ma Yinting's words before he fainted. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Wasn't this young and promising Iron Bone sect leader only Wuzong? How could he be a martial king now? Moreover, judging from the heavy aura, he was definitely not a first-grade martial king. The last time Jun Changxiao came to visit, the elders of Tsang Mountain sect who had interacted with him were also stunned at this moment. They remembered very clearly that sect leader Jun's martial aura was only a 2nd grade or 3rd grade Wuzong. How could he become a martial king in such a short time? They couldn't figure out why. In the end, they could only conclude that the Iron Bone sect leader must have deliberately suppressed his cultivation when visiting the sect. When Jun Changxiao revealed his martial king cultivation, everyone in the Blue Mountain sect was deeply shocked. Shui Tingfeng disapprovingly said proudly, "Boy, who are you? That's not important anymore." Jun Changxiao sneered and said, "What's important is that you're about to be unlucky." Whoosh! He used the cloud steps and rushed to the martial arts practice field in an instant, rushing toward the 8th grade Wuzong who had attacked Ma Yinting just now. "Oh no!" that person exclaimed. Boom! Jun Changxiao had already appeared in front of him. He punched his abdomen cleanly, causing the clothes on his back to shatter and a fist mark to appear on his skin. There was a fist mark on his back. It could be seen how terrifying the power of this punch was. The 8th grade martial grandmaster who defeated Ma Yunting suddenly stood in place. The muscles on his face were frozen in fear. His mind and brain had already lost connection. In the end, he collapsed on the ground like mud and became a corpse that still had some warmth left. Overbearing and ruthless. Elder He. The experts of the Spirit Stream sect shouted angrily. Brat! Shui Tingfeng's eyes were cold as he said, "You killed the people of my Spirit Origin sect. You, boom! Boom!" Before he could finish, Jun Changshao appeared in front of the 2 Wuzong Peak stage cultivators of the Spirit Stream sect. He reached out his hand and grabbed their necks. He said coldly, "Watch how I kill you today." Crack! Crack! His 10 fingers tightened abruptly like a pair of pliers. The 2 Wuzong Peak stage martial artists who were bound didn't even have time to struggle before they both died. Die! The martial king from Duanshui Pavilion strode over. His right fist was condensed with spiritual energy that was close to materialization, and he blasted over with a force of 1,000,000 kilograms. Jun Changshao abruptly turned around and punched out with his right fist, colliding directly with his opponent's fist. A violent force came crashing down like an avalanche. Bang crack! Thump! 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 That Duanshui Pavilion's martial king had a sinister look on his face as he explosively retreated backwards. By the time he stabilized his body, his right arm was paralyzed and the bones in his hand were directly broken. Sect leader Yu and the elders of Tsang Mountain sect were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out. They could understand that a martial king could kill a Wuzong as easily as crushing an ant. However, sect leader Jun had broken a martial king's arm with a single punch. This was too terrifying. Shui Tingfeng's face turned solemn. He didn't put Jun Changshao in his eyes at first, but he didn't expect him to be so tyrannical. Great Elder. Zhuang Yong said telepathically, "This kid's strength is not to be underestimated." Whoosh! At this moment, Jun Changshao appeared in front of the injured martial king with the cloud-treading steps. Like a high and mighty king, he said, "Today, I will sacrifice a martial king to the heavens. Don't even think about it, little thief." Zhuang Yong strode over. The spiritual energy gathered in his hand was immediately displayed, forming a scorching and dazzling beam of light in an instant. A martial king was indeed a martial king. It seemed to be a casual move, but whether it was the momentum formed by the martial skill or the power it carried, it was very explosive. If it were the sect leader and the elders of Tsang Mountain sect, it would be difficult for them to contend with such a strong opponent. You overestimate yourself. Jun Changshao raised his hand and dense spiritual energy gathered in an instant, forming a crimson beam of light at the fastest speed. This was the 7 mysterious sunglow break. Sect leader Jun had been practicing this skill for a long time, but this was the first time he displayed it in front of others. Whoosh! The crimson beam of light instantly burst out, leaving a long trail of light behind it. Boom! The energy beam from the other side was ruthlessly destroyed, but the crimson beam of light didn't dissipate. Instead, it carried a great force and rushed forward. Not good. Zhuang Yong's face changed greatly. Buzz! At the fastest speed, a spiritual energy wall was instantly arranged in front of him, forming an absolute defense. Boom! However, when the crimson beam of light hit the wall, it couldn't withstand a single blow. The fist-sized beam of light accurately hit Zhuang Yong's chest. Thump! 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 The huge impact caused the third-rank martial king of Spirit Stream sect to stagger back more than 20 steps before he could stabilize his body. Wah! A mouthful of blood spurted out. If it wasn't for the energy beam and the spiritual energy wall that offset a lot of the power of the 7 mysterious sunglow break, he would have already been injured and fell to the ground. Trash! Jun Changshao sneered and used the cloud-treading steps to catch up with the martial king of Duanshui Pavilion, who had dodged while he was fighting with Zhuang Yong. Buzz! The cold gleam sword appeared in his hand out of thin air, and he coldly said, "In your next life, don't come to Azure Sun County. The martial king's complexion changed greatly. He released all the spiritual energy in his spirit core and formed the strongest spiritual energy wall in his life. Whoosh! A cold gleam flashed, resplendent like a flower. A sword mark appeared on the spiritual energy wall formed by the martial king of Duanshui Pavilion. His head was separated from his neck and fell to the ground. His face was filled with horror and despair. Plop! The headless corpse fell. The strongest spiritual energy wall formed by the martial king of Duanshui Pavilion also dissipated in the air along with its master. On this day, the martial king of Duanshui Pavilion died in the Blue Mountain Sect. The perpetrator was Jun Changshao. Hiss! The Blue Mountain Sect leader and others gasped when they saw Jun Changshao kill the martial king of Duanshui Pavilion with one sword. This powerful strength and this overbearing means were like the arrival of a god of death. Whoosh whoosh! Shui Tingfeng rushed over with abundant spiritual energy. He raised his hand and threw a heavy punch. At the same time, Zhuangyong also used his fist technique. This was the spiritual energy explosion fist of the spiritual energy sect. Although it was not a spiritual energy martial technique, as long as it hit the target at close range, it would cause explosive damage. Moreover, this was a joint attack. When two people used it at the same time, it would cause resonance, and the power would only be stronger than when one person used it alone. Boom! Boom! It was too late to say, but in the blink of an eye, Shui Tingfeng and Zhuangyong's spiritual energy explosion fist had already hit Jun Changxiao's back. A strong wave of air roared out, instantly bringing about gusts of wind. Wuzong and even the Iron Bone disciples standing around were suddenly stirred up by the two forces, and their eyes were filled with horror. This level, this power, what the fuck? Chapter 457. A fourth-rank martial king and a third-rank martial king performed a joint attack. The power generated in an instant was so terrifying that it even shattered the D-grade stone slabs in the outer courtyard. At the same time, the remaining power generated by the spiritual energy ripples formed ripples that spread in all directions, forcing the surrounding cultivators to retreat 7 or 8 steps. They stabilized their bodies, but the blood in their bodies was boiling violently. Oh my god! This kind of residual power was too terrifying. Sect leader Yu and the elders of the Blue Mountain Sect were very worried. They were worried that Jun Changshao would be seriously injured. The experts of the two sects of the Xinjiang County sneered. With such a strong power and the joint attack of two third and fourth rank martial kings, that hateful guy would definitely die. Whoosh whoosh! The wind continued to howl, sweeping away the dust in the surroundings. The area of the battle gradually appeared. Shui Tingfeng and Zhuangyong were still in their attacking positions, and powerful spiritual energy was spreading out. However, to everyone's disbelief, Jun Changshao was still standing in the same place. However, his white clothes were now replaced by a black armor. The two martial kings of the Spirit Stream sect did hit their target, but they didn't hit his body. Instead, they hit his armor. How? How is this possible? Zhuangyong was shocked. His and the Great Elder's joint attack was definitely 4 million Jin. Even a peak high-rank martial king wouldn't be able to withstand it. How could he stand there unscathed? Shui Tingfeng's face was also ugly. However, he reacted faster than Zhuangyong. He instantly determined that the reason why his opponent could stand there was definitely related to the armor he was wearing. To be able to withstand such a powerful force and still act as if nothing had happened, could it be that this was an extremely high-quality defensive equipment? Wrong. It wasn't a piece of equipment. It was an armor formed by Jun Changxiao's spiritual armor. Due to the rich spiritual energy, it was not only similar to a real armor, but it could also change into a black color at will. Elder Ma was seriously injured, which made him very angry. Therefore, the armor turned black, which represented death and slaughter. Seeing Jun Changshao standing there unscathed, sect leader Yu and the elders of the Blue Mountain sect were not only shocked, but also secretly relieved. It seemed Sect leader Jun was stronger than they thought. Whoosh! At this moment, Jun Changshao suddenly turned around. The middle-grade frostlight sword in his hand slashed through the air, forming an unparalleled sword energy. Retreat! Shui Tingfeng and Zhuang Yong retreated at the same time by means of a mysterious body movement. Although they managed to avoid the sharp sword qi, their backs were drenched in cold sweat. This person's weapon could easily kill a martial king from Tuanshui Pavilion. It was definitely not an ordinary weapon. What kind of person was he? What kind of person was he? Shua! Jun Changshao strode over and locked his eyes on Zhuang Yong. His entire body was instantly filled with a cold and sharp sword momentum. How strong was he? The entire Tsang Mountain Sect's outer courtyard was suddenly filled with a sharp aura, giving people a terrible feeling of desolation. And Jun Changshao, who was rushing towards Zhuang Yong, seemed to have turned into a sharp sword under the influence of the sword momentum. Wang! 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 Under the cover of the cold and sharp sword momentum, the swords held by many martial cultivators trembled violently, as if they were worshipping a king. Seeing such a strange scene, Sect leader Yu's eyes gradually widened. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Sword! Sword King!" Shui Tingfeng was aghast. He is the Sword and Martial Kings. Sword and Martial Kings. Everyone present opened their mouths and looked at Jun Changshao as if they were looking at a monster. The Sword and Martial Kings had not been seen in the Falling Star continent for 5,000 years. No, they were just born in Qingyang County a few days ago. Wait. The experts of the two sects in Xinjiang County suddenly realized that the Tsang Mountain sect they were in now belonged to Qingyang County. This seemingly young teenager had first released the aura of a martial king, and now the aura of a sword king. Could it be that he was the one who became the Sword and Martial Kings a few days ago? Unbelievable, unbelievable. The injured Wang Donglin was dumbfounded. Not long ago, there was a strange phenomenon in the sky when the Sword and Martial Kings descended. He and Ma Yinting had wondered if it was sect leader Jun. In fact, at that time, he and Elder Ma had only hoped that such a powerful existence would be Jun Changshao, because he was the only one who could bear the word monster. Now that he had unleashed the power of the Sword King, Wang Donglin finally realized that it wasn't just a hope. It was real. Sect leader Jun wasn't a demon. He was a demon. Everyone was shocked when he released the aura of a martial king. Jun Changshao once again unleashed his Sword King cultivation base. Everyone was so excited that they were all dumbfounded. Shui Tingfeng and Zhuang Yong finally understood why this young man, who looked like he was only at the first stage, had such a terrifying combat strength. It turned out that he was a sword and martial king. Whoosh! While the two were still in shock, Jun Changshao stepped on the ground and flew dozens of feet into the air. It felt as if he was standing side by side with the sun. Zhuang Yong, who was locked in place, was terrified. Then, his expression changed drastically and he quickly retreated. However, when he retreated a few steps, he felt the surrounding sword intent pressing down on him like a wave. The pressure slowed down and made his legs heavy. Zhuang Yong was shocked. In his understanding, only Wu Huang's Qi domain could use the aura to bind others. After breaking through to the Martial King realm, one could condense the spiritual energy into a wall and use spiritual thoughts to spy on everything around. After breaking through to Wu Huang, one could not only fly in the air, but also spread out spiritual energy to form an aura field to bind the target. This was called the Qi domain. Jun Changshao rose into the air and controlled the sword intent to form an oppressive force. Although it was similar to Wu Huang's Qi domain, it was actually the second move of the Ling Jian divine art, force technique. He had already comprehended this move before breaking through, but he was not familiar with it. After entering the Sword and Martial King realm, he immediately had a deeper understanding. First, he broke the 7 mysterious light, then turned the spiritual armor into armor, and now he used the second move of the Ling Jian divine art. Sect leader Jun had used a lot of moves today. To be honest. At Wu Zong's level, although the fight was very intense, he still lacked something. Now that he had entered the Sword and Martial King realm, he could easily use any move. He understood that what he lacked before was shock. It was not enough to shock. He had to be lethal. Whoosh! Jun Changshao rose into the air and bound Zhuang Yong with his sword. His eyes flashed coldly, and he said, "I'll kill another martial king today." Zhuang Yong, whose movements were restricted, was shocked. A strong sense of crisis rose in his heart. Was he going to die? No! 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 Zhuang Yong's eyes were about to pop out. The spiritual energy in his body surged crazily, forming an almost solid wall in front of him. Buzz! At the same time, outside the wall, an arc-shaped transparent barrier appeared. 2 layers of defense were deployed. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, Jun Changshao, who was in the air, slashed with the cold light sword in his hand. Dense sword energy fell from the sky, forming a sword rain. One word fast technique. 500 sword strikes in one breath. Chapter 458. Jun Changshao, who was in mid-air, had thrown out 500 swords in one breath. The sword energy that filled the sky was simply too cool. Whoosh whoosh! The dense sword energy turned into a cold rain of swords in mid-air and crashed down on the barrier formed by Zhuang Yong. Domineering and powerful. Bang! 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 It only took a few dozen sword chis for the chi wall, which was similar to an array formation, to be destroyed. The upper-grade true treasure in Zhuang Yong's arms shattered on the spot. The blood in his body was boiling violently. He suppressed it and tried his best to reinforce the last of the spiritual energy wall, hoping, boom! 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 The sword energy continued to crash down mercilessly and hit the spiritual energy wall again and again. In a short time, cracks appeared on the wall until it completely collapsed. Puff! Zhuang Yong spat out a mouthful of blood. The true treasure and the spiritual energy wall were all broken, which was a heavy blow to him. He was already seriously injured. If he could resist it, it would not matter. However, after the second line of defense was broken, more sword energy burst out with cold power. No! Zhuang Yong roared in despair. Puff! Puff! More than 200 rays of sword chi went straight for the root of the problem, instantly slashing his body. Deep sword wounds immediately appeared on his body, and blood spurted out. Many martial artists' mouths twitched. This kind of attack was tantamount to cutting him into pieces. After a while, the sword energy disappeared into nothingness. Zhuang Yong was still standing in the same place. His body was covered with sword marks and could be described as a bloody mess. The real fatal wound was on his neck. There were 4 shallow sword marks. His expression was ferocious and his eyes were unfocused. Elder Zhuang! Shui Tingfeng, who had rushed out of the range of the sword energy, roared angrily. However, as soon as he shouted, Zhuang Yong, whose back was facing him, leaned back and fell on the cracked ground. Jun Changshao killed another martial king. This martial king was still a 3rd-grade martial king. Everyone in Songshan's sect was shocked. The experts of the 2 sects in Jinyang County were terrified. 2 of the top experts in Yangzhou in the southwest were killed today. This was extremely terrifying and unbelievable. However, after killing Zhuang Yong, Jun Changshao's sharp eyes looked at Shui Tingfeng again and said coldly, "Next, it's your turn." He still wanted to continue killing. Jun Changshao wanted to tell the true Yang County and the Falling Star continent that he would take the life of anyone who harmed his friends. Lu Qianshan frowned and thought to herself, sect leader started a massacre. Isn't he afraid of offending 2 fourth-rate sects? When he thought about the enmity his sect had with 2 third-rate heretical sects, he realized that if he was afraid of this and that, he wouldn't be him. Jun Changshao wasn't afraid, but Shui Tingfeng was. At this moment, his eyes were filled with fear, and the thought of retreating rose in his heart. This kind of dual king of sword and martial arts was definitely not someone he could contend with. Not to mention, the dual king of sword and martial arts was able to form a binding force similar to a force field just now. However, if they retreated just like that, where would they put their face and the spirit stream sect's face? Shua! Shui Tingfeng executed his movement technique, and like an arrow released from a bow, he sped towards the outside. Face was nothing. It was already good enough that he could stay alive. A martial king who had no fighting spirit and was focused on escaping was really fast. In the blink of an eye, Shui Tingfeng had already jumped out of the Tsang Mountain sect. In a few leaps, he arrived at the foot of the mountain and disappeared into the forest. Jun Changshao didn't chase after him. Instead, he locked his gaze on the horrified experts of the Truyang County and said coldly, "Remember, if you don't have the strength, don't challenge me." "Yes, yes." Everyone hurriedly said. Whoosh! Whoosh! Sword light flashed. Clang! Jun Changshao sheathed his sword. The experts of the Truyang County and martial arts who were standing in the outer courtyard of the Tsang Mountain sect fell to the ground, with fine sword marks on their necks. The 3 martial kings and 20 Wuzong who were responsible for the arrangements of the Tsang Mountain sect were all dead, except for Shui Tingfeng who ran away. Otherwise, Jun Changshao finished his words and said, "All of you will die here." The entire Tsang Mountain sect was silent. In such a short time, sect leader Jun had killed 2 martial kings and so many Wuzong. He was too terrifying, too terrifying. Jun, sect leader Yu retracted his gaze from the corpses. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, he saw that Jun Changshao had disappeared along with the Hurricane Wolf King. Whoosh! 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 In the dense forest, Shui Tingfeng used his movement technique to the extreme and headed toward the Truyang County. He had been ordered to make arrangements for the Tsang Mountain sect, but in the end, he met a killing god. This was something he had never dreamed of. Damn it! Shui Tingfeng shouted angrily when he thought of Elder Zhuang's death. You killed the people of the Spirit Stream sect. I will bury the Tsang Mountain sect and the entire Azure Sun County with you. From the beginning to the end, he didn't know who this young man was. Since he had come to help the Tsang Mountain sect, he must be from the Azure Sun County. Therefore, this debt was not only on the Tsang Mountain sect, but also on the Azure Sun County. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. When innocent people were involved, the mentality of the Spirit Stream sect's first elder was no different from that of the evil section So. In a world where martial arts were respected, there was no such thing as good or evil. Some forces just wanted to set up a good image for themselves. In fact, the dirty things they did behind the scenes were even worse than those of the evil sections. Whoosh! 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 Shui Tingfeng rushed forward and gradually relaxed when he was about 500 to 600 miles away from the Tsang Mountain sect. Suddenly, a wolf howl came from behind him. Shui Tingfeng extended his spiritual senses and saw that the young man was chasing him at an extremely fast speed on the Hurricane Wolf King more than 10 miles away. His expression changed drastically, and he immediately ran forward without stopping. Unfortunately, the Spirit Stream sect's first elder's cultivation level was higher than the Hurricane Wolf King's, but his speed was slower. The distance between the two was gradually closing. Whoosh! When he was only a few hundred meters away, Jun Changshao clasped his hands together and placed them on his waist. He began to use the Kamehameha Chi. 7 Mysterious Sunglow Break. Whoosh whoosh! As he galloped, the special attributes hidden between heaven and earth gathered and finally formed a dazzling red light in his palms. Sect leader Jun didn't use it directly. Instead, he continued to accumulate power until he was satisfied. Then, he pushed his hands forward and said, 7 Mysterious Sunglow Break. Whoosh! The red light beam, which was as imposing as a rainbow, shot out explosively, dragging a stream of light behind it. The powerful inertia caused the charging Hurricane Wolf King to stop abruptly and retreat 3 to 5 meters. Oh no! Seeing this, Shui Tingfeng's expression changed drastically. The light beam that shot out from behind was not only powerful, but also very fast. He couldn't dodge it at all. Buzz! In an instant, a spiritual wall formed in front of him, and a small pagoda-like defensive treasure was thrown out. In an instant, 3 layers of defensive enchantments were formed on the road. This small pagoda was called the World Defense Pagoda. It had reached the early stage of the upper grade and was Shui Tingfeng's personal defensive treasure. It was much more powerful than the one Zhuang Yong had just activated. Most martial king realm experts had treasures to protect them. But our sect leader Jun didn't, because he only bought martial arts and equipment in the shop. However, he would get it soon. The 7 mysterious sunglow break whistled and rushed over, breaking many layers of enchantments in an instant. The World Defense Pagoda, which was suspended in mid-air, trembled violently and fell to the ground uncontrollably. Jun Changshao didn't pick it up. His hands were still supporting the red light beam, and he attacked Shui Tingfeng's back. Boom! The light beam and the spiritual wall collided fiercely. The powerful impact instantly broke the wall. The great elder of the Spirit Stream sect, who had lost his defense, was hit in the back. He crashed into the mountain wall like a kite with a broken string. Wah! He spat out a mouthful of blood. The meridians in his body were severely damaged. Jun Changshao, who was riding the Hurricane Wolf King, landed lightly in front of him. He played with the dim World Defense Pagoda in his hand and said lightly, "I said, since you're here, don't go back." Chapter 459. Shui Tingfeng was severely injured after the treasure and Qi Wall were destroyed. He had no ability to escape at all. He had arranged the forces in Heiyang and Huayang counties well, but he didn't expect to fail in Qingyang County, which he didn't care about the most. However, when he heard Jun Changshao refer to himself as this lord, Shui Tingfeng couldn't help but guess. Could this person be the leader of a sect? Especially when he thought of Ma Yinteng, who called him sect leader Jun before he fainted, he suddenly realized. "You are the sect leader of Iron Bone, Jun Changshao." "That's right," Jun Changshao said. He didn't plan to hide his identity from the beginning. He didn't say it because he was angry and only wanted to avenge Elder Ma. Shui Tingfeng's eyes were filled with disbelief. He had heard of Iron Bone and knew that although this sect leader wasn't simple, his cultivation was only at the level of Wuzong. Sect. Sect leader Jun, Shui Tingfeng said with difficulty, "We are all people of Jianghu, why do you have to kill me?" He was terrified. He didn't have the arrogance he had when he came to Tsang Mountain sect. This was the cruel reality. If you were weak, others would bully you. If you were strong, others would fear you. Swoosh! Jun Changshao squatted down and grabbed his collar. He said lightly, "You beat Elder Ma like that and you still have the nerve to call yourself a person of Jianghu?" If he had only injured Ma Yinteng and not seriously injured him, he wouldn't have gone to such extremes to kill. Shui Tingfeng said with a bitter face, "It's inevitable that there will be accidental injuries in a spar." Paw! As soon as he finished speaking, sect leader Jun slapped him and said, "This counts as accidental injury." A palm print appeared on Shui Tingfeng's right cheek, accompanied by a burning pain, but he endured it and said, "Yes." If slapping could make the other party withdraw his killing intent, he would rather be hit a few more times. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "As the king of martial arts, why don't you have any backbone?" Shui Tingfeng was silent. Jun Changshao said, "Tsang Mountain sect and Iron Bone are allies. Bullying them is bullying me, Jun Changshao, so, clang." The cold sword was unsheathed. Shui Tingfeng's face suddenly changed, or perhaps he realized that he was going to die, so he angrily said, "Jun Changshao, if you kill me, it's the same as offending the entire Xinjiang County. When the time comes, the county governor will send an army of 1,000,000. You won't be the only one to die. Everyone will die with you." Jun Changshao pretended to be conflicted and said, "If I let you go, my Azure Sun County will be buried with you. If I kill you, my Azure Sun County will also be buried with you. This makes it very difficult for me to choose. Shui Tingfeng was dumbfounded. Earlier, he said that he would bury the Blue Mountain Sect and the entire Azure Sun County with those who killed my Spirit Stream Sect. June. Sect Master June, Shui Tingfeng hurriedly said, I was just speaking out of anger. You don't think. Puchi the sword gleam flashed, incomparably sharp. Shui Tingfeng was still talking, but his head and neck had already been separated, and then fell on the grass, his eyes gradually losing focus. I'm sorry. Jun Changshao withdrew his sword and said, I took it seriously. Let him go, die with him. Kill him, die with him. Since that was the case, then kill him. Plop, the headless corpse fell, blood flowing. Ding! Hidden mission completed, kill without mercy, 1000 contribution points have been obtained. Ding! Sect contribution points, 5642500. Ding! Sect contribution points have overflowed. After killing all the experts of the two sects who came to invade the Blue Mountain Sect, Jun Changshao completed another hidden mission. This was rather unexpected, and he hadn't expected it. As usual, Jun Changshao searched Shui Tingfeng's body and found 2 spatial rings. He then used his exquisite fire to burn them to ashes. The system said, if you didn't hear what he said, would the host kill him? Jun Changshao said, that's not important anymore. The system said, the host's spiritual sense is twice as strong as an ordinary martial king. He would never have thought that his words would be heard by the host who was 100 miles away. Jun Changshao said, my spiritual sense is stronger than others because I have 2 crystal cores. That's right. The system said. Jun Changshao smiled and said, it seems that even without the help of you and Shangcheng, I can still have a foothold. The system said, the host is not only a sword martial king, but also a dual spirit core. Without my help, you can indeed establish a foothold in the falling star continent. How about this? It said, why don't you temporarily stop the system and wander the other world by yourself? However, the bound soul bomb won't be stopped just because I stop moving. Get lost. Jun Changshao wouldn't stop the system. After all, although he had the strength to establish a foothold in the other world, his sect was still very weak. No matter what, he had to meet the requirements of the strongest sect, remove the bound soul bomb, and then stop this guy who kept attacking him. The system said, host, this is called killing the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness. Yes, yes. Jun Changshao said in agreement, you are a donkey. On the way back to the Blue Mountain Sect, sect leader Jun began to count Shui Tingfeng's 2 space rings. In the end, he was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth for a long time. 10,000 spirit stones. Crystal cores, ores, medicinal herbs. Even the banknotes were worth tens of millions. Damn! Jun Changshao said in surprise, this guy is really rich. How could the great elder of a 4th-rate sect not be rich? The system poured cold water on him. What the host cares about now is not the harvest, but how to deal with a 4th-rate sect and a 6th-rate Jinyang county. That makes sense. Jun Changshao frowned. Although he had killed the man, he was in a good mood. However, he had to seriously consider how to deal with the aftermath. Otherwise, he would be foolishly showing off. The system said, after these 2 sects learned that their martial king was killed, they definitely won't let it go. Jinyang County will definitely invade when they learn that the host has captured Taoyuan. This is a bit troublesome. Jun Changshao rubbed his temples, feeling that the situation was very troublesome. If he offended a 3rd-rate evil sect, he could just hide inside the sect's protective array and fight with them. If he offended a 6th-rate county, he would hide and the people in the county would be affected. Oh right. His eyes lit up, and he said, I still have the battle exemption card. If I write Jinyang County on it, won't I be able to avoid battle for 3 months? The system said, let's not talk about whether this product will be effective on a county. Let's talk about what the host will do after 3 months. Bring a few thousand disciples and fight against 2 sects and a million-strong army? Impossible. Jun Changshao knew his own limits. Even if the Wolf Rider Hall fought against 200,000 or 300,000 soldiers, they would still die miserably, let alone a million-strong army. If there's really no other way, I can only use the battle exemption card. After all, 3 months is 3 months. Just as sect leader Jun made up his mind, he spread out his spiritual sense and caught sight of a flowing light 100 miles away. It was rapidly approaching. To be exact, it was rapidly approaching. Wu Huang. Jun Changshao was shocked. Immediately after, he realized that the flowing light was flying toward him. The system said nervously, "The aura of the incoming person is very similar to the person you just killed. They must be from the same sect." Fuck. Jun Changshao broke down and said, "I just killed him and he's coming for revenge. This speed is too fast." As he spoke, he had already used the cloud-treading steps and fled into the depths of the forest. He was confident that he could fight against a high-level martial king, but against Wu Huang, he absolutely had to run as fast as he could. However, not long after he ran, a cold shout came from the flowing light behind him, "You killed my spirit stream sect's people. Today will be your death anniversary." Whoosh whoosh, the voice contained a strong aura, and the entire space seemed to tremble. Jun Changshao, who was running wildly, was suddenly restrained by an invisible force, and his body gradually became slower. This was Wu Huang's Qi domain. Fuck. Jun Changshao was covered in cold sweat, and he howled in his heart, "I really want to live for another 500 years. Chapter 460. Jun Changshao knew that after killing 3 martial kings from the 2 sects in Jinyang County, they would definitely investigate. Sooner or later, they would find him. However, he didn't expect that right after he killed Shui Tingfeng, they would send someone to chase after him. Moreover, they sent someone at the level of Wu Huang who could fly. They thought too highly of him. Actually, sect leader Jun didn't know that after he killed Zhuang Yong, the Spirit Stream sect, which was thousands of miles away, had sensed it. When Shui Tingfeng was running away, he used a special method to transmit what happened to him. That was why they sent out their strongest force. The system said, "Host, you killed 3 martial kings. If they don't send someone more powerful, wouldn't it be like the Calabash brothers saving Grandpa?" If he wasn't in danger, sect leader Jun would definitely have discussed the plot of the Calabash brothers with the system and asked whether he liked eldest baby or second baby. Can you stop making sarcastic remarks? Hurry up and think of a way to get out of danger. Host, you have been completely restrained by Wu Huang's Qi domain. Right now, I can only describe the situation as you can't fly. That was a wing. What the fuck? Don't panic, I still have hard blade. The system poured cold water on him. With Host's current strength, Hardblade can't deal with Wu Huang who can form a Qi domain. Just as Jun Changshao was about to collapse, a vast pressure came from behind him and enveloped him. It made him feel as if he was carrying a mountain on his back. Although this force was stronger than the training tower's gravity, he could still adapt to it. However, with the Qi domain, he couldn't increase his speed. He was almost frozen in place. It's over. I'm going to die today. In the midst of despair, Jun Changshao suddenly thought of the escape talisman. This was the last talisman given by the big gift package. In the past, sect leader Jun always thought that as the sect leader of the Iron Bones sect, he could be beaten, abused, and humiliated. However, he couldn't do something as cowardly as running away. A man should be unyielding. A man should be upright. Shwa! His spiritual sense entered the ring and he held the escape talisman in his hand. Whoosh! Right at this moment, that Wu Huang powerhouse had already flown over from dozens of kilometers away. His speed was so fast that it was breathtaking. Brat, die! He shouted angrily and raised his hand. Above Jun Changshao, the invisible heaven and earth attributes suddenly appeared. As if drawn by some kind of power, they instantly gathered together and formed a huge palm print. Whoosh whoosh the wind howled, and its power was astonishing. After breaking through to the Sword and Martial King realm, Sect leader Jun felt that he was very awesome. Every move he made was shocking. However, compared to Wu Huang, who could easily control the elements of heaven and earth, the difference was like heaven and earth. Therefore, the most important thing in life was to be happy. Huff, the huge palm came crashing down. From afar, one could clearly see a visible wave of air pressing down. It felt as if a mountain was collapsing, sending up clouds of dust. This process happened extremely quickly. Jun Changshao had only held the talisman in his hand and had yet to crush it. At this moment, if he didn't have the ability to escape, even an immortal wouldn't be able to save him. He could only go to hell and beg for mercy. Jun Changxiao's heart was beating wildly. His back was drenched in cold sweat, and his whole face was almost distorted. This was partly because of the pressure and the Qi domain, and partly because of the prediction of death. Death. Jun Changshao had experienced it before. Therefore, he understood the importance of staying alive better than anyone else. I haven't established the strongest sect yet, and I haven't said goodbye to being single yet. How can I die here? Bang! The escape talisman was crushed. Boom! Suddenly, a clap of thunder sounded in the clear sky. Immediately, the space seemed to be torn apart by some kind of power, and a huge gap appeared. Whoosh! A stream of light flew out from the gap and fell down like a meteor. The Wu Huang powerhouse who had gathered the heaven and earth attributes to attack Jun Changshao suddenly felt that something was wrong. He looked up and said in surprise, "Oh no!" Boom! A huge noise sounded in the wilderness, and the whole ground suddenly shook. The birds and beasts in a radius of hundreds of miles were frightened and ran in all directions. What's going on? Is it an earthquake? In the nearest town, many martial cultivators and common people walked on the street. They looked in the direction of the sound, but didn't find anything unusual. The crack that had been torn open in the sky earlier had vanished as well. Everything had returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. Nothing had happened here, but the area where Jun Changshao was restrained just now had a huge change. A huge pit appeared out of nowhere in the originally empty grassland, as if it was caused by a meteorite falling. Damn it, at the bottom of the pit, a weak voice sounded. Then, a hand grabbed the edge of the pit and a person slowly climbed out. This person's clothes were torn, and his hair was disheveled. There were dents and scars on his exposed skin, as if he had been severely beaten. Jun Changshao had disappeared from the area where the palm print had hit, and Wu Huang of the Spirit Stream sect, who had attacked him, was also gone. Jun Changshao had disappeared because he had crushed the escape talisman at the critical moment. As for Wu Huang, he was more miserable. At this moment, he was at the bottom of the pit, and he had fainted completely. What's going on? It's very simple. After the space was torn, the flowing light flew down and hit him exactly. The whole process happened so fast that Wu Huang didn't have time to think about defense. Huff! Huff! The person with disheveled hair who had climbed out of the pit lay on the ground, facing the sky, and gasped for breath. Then, he said, "I hit him. He's really unlucky." From this sentence, it wasn't difficult to see that the flowing light that had knocked Wu Huang unconscious was actually this guy. But then again, that was not the case. How could he suddenly fly out of the space crack and hit the expert of the Spirit Stream sect so accurately? Could it be that the escape talisman that Jun Changshao had crushed just now had the ability to summon an expert from the void to kill him? This operation was too amazing, wasn't it? Crack! The person with disheveled hair clenched his hands tightly, and a crisp sound was heard. He said angrily, "You forced me to lower my cultivation and escape to the mortal world. Sooner or later, I will avenge you." After saying this, the bruised skin all over his body began to strangely shrink. His body, which originally looked like an adult, gradually turned into that of a teenager. The side effect of lowering my cultivation is that my body will weaken, as if I have returned to my youth. The physical body that I have worked so hard to build will also become fragile as my muscles contract. The man murmured, and the anger in his eyes became more and more intense. All of this is because. He used all the strength in his body and roared angrily, I don't even know who the fuck stole the 7 profound sunglow fragment scroll. I'm even more unlucky than the guy lying down there. Chapter 461. The 7 profound rays broken scroll. Could it be that this person was Hiwudi, who was being chased by so many experts in the endless void? It's him. He didn't expect that such a miserable person would appear in the falling star continent, and in such a way. It was truly inconceivable. In fact, Hiwudi didn't want to. But he couldn't take out the 7 profound rays broken scroll, and others thought that he had it, so he could only be chased to the end of the world. He didn't want to die. He wanted to live. So, he had no choice but to use a special ability to directly tear space, cross the void, and enter a lower plane. Judging from the aura he released when he was being chased, he was definitely a very terrifying existence. But after coming here, the great side effect of using the ability weakened his body and cultivation, and his soul power also suffered a heavy blow in the process of crossing the void. Right now, Hiwudi's appearance was that of a young man, and his cultivation had been wasted. It was fortunate that he was still alive. In that case, he was similar to Yixingchen. However, he was a protagonist who met a disaster, while Night Emperor was a protagonist who was reborn. Phew! Hiwudi lay on the ground for a while and stood up with difficulty. He said, the attributes of this lower plane are different from the attributes of the previous world. They are very weak. I have a lot of advanced martial arts, but they can't be of any use. That was the most tragic thing. Even if he lost his cultivation, he could still continue to cultivate and make a comeback. But coming to the falling star continent was equivalent to changing his cultivation environment. In the past, martial arts either needed special attributes or were unpredictable and couldn't be comprehended at all. It was equivalent to dropping from the maximum level to 0. What made Hiwudi even more depressed was that when he used his divine ability, he had clearly locked onto a lower realm that was compatible with his martial arts. How did he end up in a plane with a completely different style after crossing the void? Maybe my injuries are too serious, and my mind is a little unstable, so there is a deviation. Although he was disappointed, Hiwudi was still very satisfied to be able to avoid being chased by experts. It didn't matter if his body, cultivation, and soul power were gone. As long as he was still alive, he would have a chance to become stronger. He would have a chance to return to his peak and take revenge. More importantly, he still had his invincible talent. In this mortal realm, with my aptitude, I can absolutely look down on all heroes and beat up all geniuses. Therefore, as long as I come into contact with their martial arts, it will be easy for me to become the strongest in a short period of time. Hiwudi dragged his weak body and left. He needed to find a place to recuperate. As for Wu Huang of the Spirit Stream Sect, he was still unconscious in the deep pit. When he woke up, he would definitely be puzzled as to why he was suddenly ambushed. Plop! Time returned to the moment Sect Master Jun crushed the talisman. His entire body appeared in the wilderness 1,000 miles away from the area where the huge palm had pressed down on. Then, he sat down on the ground. Who? He took a deep breath. You managed to escape. Escaped. The system said. Damn it. Jun Changshao lay on the ground and said with lingering fear, it was too dangerous. Crushing the escape talisman helped him escape danger, but it also brought about a huge side effect. At this moment, his body felt as if it had been hollowed out. But, recalling what had happened just now, Jun Changshao murmured, before I left, I seem to have heard a clap of thunder. What happened? The system said, the principle of the escape talisman is to cross the void. Therefore, it is normal for it to cause a phenomenon. I see. Jun Changshao understood. From this conversation, it was not difficult to see that Hiwudi did not know about the appearance of Wu Huang and the subsequent events. And from the system's words, it could also be inferred that the appearance of the unlucky guy from the other mortal realm on the falling star continent might have something to do with the escape talisman. This series of events was not only strange, but also very coincidental. Strange. Jun Changshao rested for a while and said, "How can a fourth-rate sect have Wu Huang?" The system said, "That person's aura is unstable. He should have just broken through not long ago." Oh. Jun Changshao stopped thinking about it. Because of his weak body, he could only lie quietly on the grass. At this time, even ordinary ferocious beasts can eat you. Can't you just hope for me? About an hour later, the Hurricane Wolf King rushed out of the forest with the little dragon on its back. Sect leader Jun, who was very nervous when he heard the noise, let out a long sigh of relief when he saw his contracted beast. That's not right. Why is the Hurricane Wolf King here? Or did it slip away when I was being chased by Wu Huang? How quick-witted. The Hurricane Wolf King did not slip away and came back safe and sound because the spiritual origin sex expert was knocked unconscious. If Woody had not suddenly dropped a stroke from the sky, he might not have been able to escape Wu Huang's pursuit even if he used the escape talisman to escape thousands of miles away. The side effect lasted for 4 hours. After it dissipated, Jun Changshao gradually recovered his strength. Then, he rode on the Hurricane Wolf King and headed toward the Tsongshan sect. When he arrived at a mountainous area, he faintly heard the roars of ferocious beasts. He released the spiritual sense that he had just recovered. 20 miles away, dozens of ordinary ferocious wolves were surrounding a young man with disheveled hair and injuries all over his body. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "How pitiful." The young man's injuries were very serious and he did not have any martial aura. He was obviously an ordinary person. Yet, he dared to enter the forest. Was he not courting death? Thinking about how he had just narrowly escaped death, sect leader Jun suddenly felt compassion and decided to help him. However, just as he was about to go, he was surprised to find that although the young man's injuries were very serious and he did not have any cultivation, he was actually able to blast away several ferocious wolves with his fists. This, Jun Changshao was a little stunned. He was sure that the young man under the cover of his spiritual sense did not have any martial aura. Even if he had not even opened a single meridian, he could still send ferocious wolves flying with his fists. It was unbelievable. The system said, maybe he was born with divine strength. Jun Changshao's eyes immediately lit up. He was injured, but he could still fight dozens of ferocious wolves with his bare hands. This was definitely a good seedling for cultivation. If he was taken in and nurtured properly, he would definitely have a great future. Go! Go save him! Shwa! The Hurricane Wolf King galloped away. Boom! Boom! In the mountains, Woody raised his fists and sent 2 ferocious wolves flying again. Although his face was slightly ferocious because of his injuries, his eyes were filled with disdain. I am a dignified sage. Although I am now a tiger that has fallen from grace, how can a group of ferocious wolves bully me? More than 20 ferocious wolves also realized that the human in front of them was not simple. So, after their attacks failed, they stopped and faced him with bared teeth. Whoa! At this moment, wolf howls came from the mountain forest. Immediately, a burly ferocious wolf king walked over on a whirlwind. Trouble. Woody furrowed his brows. Chapter 462. When the Hurricane Wolf King appeared, the dozens of wolves were so shocked that they hurriedly lay on the ground, not even daring to raise their heads. A wolf king of this level was like a god in their eyes. This is troublesome. Woody furrowed his brows. The wolf beast that suddenly appeared was definitely the king of the wolf beasts. Its strength was not to be underestimated. If it was in the past, he could definitely kill it with his gaze. However, he was severely injured now, and it was difficult for him to deal with normal wolves, let alone fight it. Howl! The Hurricane Wolf King raised its head and roared. Its ferocious gaze was locked onto Woody. From the looks of it, it seemed to be preparing to attack. Damn it! Woody cursed in his heart. It was not easy for him to escape the pursuit of a group of strong cultivators. However, as soon as he arrived in the mortal world, he was about to die in the mouth of a wolf beast. He was unwilling to accept this. Whoosh! The Hurricane Wolf King directly pounced over and opened its bloody mouth. Woody was in despair. His injuries were too severe, and his physical body had severely degenerated. He could not counterattack or dodge at all. Little brother, don't panic. At this moment, a voice came from behind him. Jun Changshao suddenly stepped forward. He gathered strength in his right fist and directly punched the Hurricane Wolf King in the face, sending it flying with a bang. One of his own people fighting one of his own. What kind of show was this? The whole process happened in a flash. If it were a normal person, they would have been stunned. However, Woody's expression did not change. He stared at the man who saved him. In this world, he murmured, there is actually a man more handsome than me. Hearing this, Jun Changshao almost fell to the ground. He was about to die, and he was still thinking about this. There must be something wrong with his brain. Howl, the Hurricane Wolf King retreated far away. Its eyes were filled with fear. It then ran away with its tail between its legs. It thought to itself, wasn't it just an act? Why did he really hit me so hard? After the Hurricane Wolf King left, the 20 or so wolves were also scared and ran away. Little brother. Jun Changshao smiled and said, are you okay? He let the Hurricane Wolf King play the villain while he played the hero to win the young man's favor and recruit him. This was a good plan. I'm fine. Woody nodded, turned around, and left. Although he was grateful that someone had saved him, calling him little brother made him unhappy. Little brother. Jun Changshao shouted, you didn't even say thank you and just left like that. Isn't that too rude? Thank you. Sect leader Jun shook his head as he watched that fellow leave. I thought he would be deeply grateful. He couldn't let such a good seedling go. Jun Changshao hurriedly chased after him and said, little brother, you haven't come into contact with martial arts yet, right? When I fucking came into contact with martial arts, you were still a liquid. Little brother, are you interested in joining the sect that I created? When I fucking built the water court, you were still liquid. Little brother, Woody stopped and interrupted, big brother. Ba, big brother, can you not call me that? Jun Changshao said, you look like 16 or 17 years old. I'm already 18 years old. If I don't call you little brother, what should I call you? Woody recalled his glorious past and couldn't help but blurt out, you can call me the Invincible King. Invincible King. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched and he muttered in his heart, this must be a delusional young man. He was a delusional young man. I like it very much. I admire it very much. Okay. Jun Changshao said, little brother. Woody pulled his hair and pointed in a random direction, saying, hurry up and leave immediately. He had lost his cultivation and landed in a plane that was not compatible with his martial arts. This was already a huge blow to him. Now, there was a chatterbox following behind him, calling him little brother all the time. He was about to cry. Little brother. Jun Changshao said, my sect is short of people now. You. Stop talking. Woody stopped him from talking again. But just as he finished speaking, his injuries were affected and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Traversing the void with his physical body and soul had brought him a great deal of damage. The battle with the wild wolf just now had undoubtedly made things worse. To be honest, Woody was still able to walk because he had a good foundation. Little brother. Jun Changshao said, I have a healing pill here that can help you remove your injuries. Woody smiled bitterly. The injuries on his body were caused by the bombardment of powerhouses and by crossing the void. How could a mortal pill treat them? Swish! Jun Changshao suddenly reached out his hand, grabbed Woody's chin, and threw the beginner healing pill in. This kind of pill that could instantly heal injuries was something that Earth stage cultivators in Qingyang County would fight for, but now he was forced to feed it to someone else. Woody was angry, but just as he opened his mouth, the melted medicinal juice merged into his body, instantly forming a recovery force that repaired his damaged meridians. In just a moment, the pain and injuries on his muscles quickly disappeared and healed. His pale face gradually turned red. Woody was completely dumbfounded. He, who came from a higher plane, had eaten many high-level pills, but he had never seen such a pill that could heal injuries quickly. It was too magical. It was too incredible. Jun Changshao said, "Little brother, how's the effect?" "Big brother." Woody said solemnly, "What kind of pill is this?" "It can actually heal injuries quickly." A little brother and a big brother. The relationship between these two was very complicated. He couldn't figure out who was older and who was younger. "You want to know?" Jun Changshao said, "Join a sect and I will tell you." Woody was silent for a moment and said, "What sect? Is it very strong in this world?" "My sect is called Iron Bone Clan." Hey, why are you leaving? This sect's name sounds like a joke. How can I join it? Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Regarding the sect's name, not to mention many readers who only saw the name, even he couldn't help but complain. He had also considered changing the name, but after thinking about it, he still felt that this was the most interesting. "What do you think, little brother?" Jun Changshao chased after him and explained, "My Iron Bone Clan's name may be strange, but everyone in it is talented, and it is also very prestigious in Falling Star Continent." "Not interested," Woody said. Right now, he wanted to understand this world as soon as possible, understand the cultivation system, and begin to cultivate wholeheartedly, strive to return to the peak as soon as possible, and then, secretly go up again. "Little brother," Jun Changshao said, "join my Iron Bone Clan, and I will take you in as my last disciple. All kinds of martial arts and resources will be provided for free. You only need to focus on cultivation, this opportunity will not come again." Without cultivation, he could fight with a pack of wolves. This was definitely a natural talent. If he was trained, he would definitely be the meat shield of the sect. No matter what, he had to take him in. Woody was not interested in becoming a last disciple, but the martial arts and resources would be provided for free. His eyes instantly lit up. He was not sure whether this Iron Bone Clan was strong or not. However, he had just arrived and was unfamiliar with this place. He might as well join and familiarize himself with it. If he really couldn't do it, he could just leave. Yes. Yi Xingqian used to think so too. Now, Woody stopped and said, "Are you really taking me in as your last disciple?" "Of course." "Martial arts resources will be provided for free?" "Of course." "All right." Woody said, "Since you are so sincere, I will reluctantly join." "Shush!" Jun Changshao hurriedly took out the entry form and said, "Name." Woody. This name was very invincible. Gender. Woody was speechless. "I think I should be a man." Chapter 463. Jun Changshao valued Woody's innate strength. Woody had just arrived and needed to understand everything about the continent, so the two hit it off and colluded. Maybe it was the will of the heavens. "Let's go." Jun Changshao took out the sect master's ball and summoned the purple lightning tiger. "Follow me to Tsang Mountain Sect." Since he had accepted him as a disciple, he couldn't call him little brother anymore. A lightning-type beast? Woody was surprised. This kid is so young, but he can control such a rare beast. He's not simple. "Sect master?" he asked, "Are you following behind?" Woody used to have a high cultivation level, but he wasn't arrogant. Now, he had accepted the fact that he had fallen from full level to zero, so he joined Iron Bone and regarded himself as a disciple. He was much stronger than Yi Xingqian. After that guy was reincarnated, he always thought he was a martial emperor and acted like he was very strong. In the end, he was beaten up by Sect Master Jun with the ball. Living in the world, one must know how to be flexible and adapt to the environment. He Wudi was temporarily in trouble, but he had a good mentality. It was only a matter of time before he returned to the peak. If Yi Xingqian didn't meet Sect Master Jun and didn't join Iron Bone, there would be a lot of twists and turns on the road to growth. Of course. He Wudi was strong, but he wasn't the top in his plane. He had to endure and compromise for survival, so he had this kind of personality. Night Emperor was different. He was one of the 10 martial emperors of the Falling Star continent in his previous life, the strongest. Only this kind of person who reached the peak and looked down on other mountains would have that kind of arrogance. Snap! Jun Changshao snapped his fingers. Swoosh! The Hurricane Wolf King hiding in the dark rushed out. Ride it, Jun Changshao said. He Wudi was stunned when he saw the Hurricane Wolf King sent flying. He immediately understood something and said with his mouth twitching, Sect Master, you tricked me. Cut the crap. Jun Changshao said, hurry up and ride it. We're in a hurry. When they accepted her into the sect, they called her Little Tian Tian. After accepting her into the sect, he put on airs as the sect master and called her Madame Nyo. He was really shameless. At that moment, He Wudi felt that joining a sect was like falling into a wolf's den. However, this kid had a lightning-type demonic beast and the king of the wolf beasts. Maybe the Iron Bone Upright sect was really powerful. If you're satisfied, then continue cultivating. If it's very ordinary, I'll just find a chance to leave. He Wudi muttered to himself as the Hurricane Wolf King spread its limbs and dashed out like the wind. He almost lost his grip and was thrown off. He howled, I'm a fucking normal person now. Can't you take care of me? Invincible. On the way, Jun Changshao said in a clear voice, remember, the first principle of the Iron Bone clan is to be an Iron Bone person and do Iron Bone things. The system added, host, don't use the escape talisman. Fuck off. Tsangshan's sect. The 2 martial kings and 20 Wuzong killed by Jun Changshao had been dealt with. Their interspatial rings were also taken away by Yi Xingqian. In the past year of cultivating in the Iron Bone sect, what he learned the most was looting. Swish! Swish! Not long after, the Purple Lightning Tiger Cub and the Hurricane Wolf King jumped in from outside. Sect Master Jun. Sect Master Yu, who had been waiting for a long time, hurriedly said, did Shui Tingfeng run away, or, kill him, Jun Changshao said. The corner of Sect Master Yu's mouth twitched. There were so many experts from the 2 sects in Jinyang County, but they were all killed by him. Not a single one was left alive. He was really valiant. This is. Sect Master Yu looked at He Wudi. Jun Changshao said, he's a disciple I just took in on the way. Sect Master Yu was dumbfounded. He went to kill Shui Tingfeng and took in a disciple on the way. What the hell was going on? Yi Xingqian glanced at He Wudi and thought, vulgar mortal. Lu Qianqian was still cold. If Su Xiaoma and Li Fei were here, they would have put their arms around the new disciple's shoulders and started chatting enthusiastically. Where's Elder Ma? He's been sent to the medicine hall for treatment. Jun Changshao hurried to the medicine hall and gave Ma Yinting a mid-grade healing pill. What? Sect Master Jun is a martial king. What? 3 martial kings and 20 Wuzong were all killed by him alone. After Elder Ma woke up and learned everything from Wang Donglin, his eyes widened in disbelief. Sect Master Yu. In the main hall, Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, Jinyang County is invading. Jun still has to protect Qingyang City, so I'll take my leave first. Sect Master Jun dares to fight against a 6th-grade county for the sake of the people. I admire you. Sect Master Yu said seriously, my Blue Mountain sect is willing to help your sect defend Qingyang County. At this time, he had to declare his position. He would never consider whether or not to participate in the war. No need. Jun Changshao said, Jun can handle the following matters very well. Sect Master Yu was stunned. Could Sect Master Jun handle 2 4th-grade sects in a 6th-grade Jinyang County? How could he handle it? Sect Master Yu. Jun Changshao stood up and cupped his hands. Jun will take his leave first. He was also swift and decisive. After he finished speaking, he hurriedly left with Lu Qianxian, Yi Xingchen, and He Wudi, who he had just taken in. On the way, he didn't even think about it. He opened the middle-grade store and bought a low-grade spirit medicine, returning his contribution points to normal. When he thought about Wu Huang, who had come to kill him, Jun Changshao realized that this matter would definitely end here. Therefore, he took out the battle exemption token and engraved the words Jinyang County on it. He was worried that the experts of Gue Yuan's sect would come to kill him again, so he urgently wanted to enter the battle exemption token as soon as possible. As for whether it would work or not, he could only pray in his heart. Whoosh! At this moment, the battle exemption token flashed with a dazzling light. The system said, it worked. Really? Jun Changshao was overjoyed. In the deep pit, Wu Huang, who had been knocked unconscious, finally woke up. He held his head and stood up. With a ferocious expression, he said, So painful, no. Wasn't I cultivating in the sect? Why am I here? Wu Huang climbed out of the deep pit and looked at the unfamiliar surroundings. He was puzzled. He tried hard to recall, but he couldn't remember anything. This was the effect of the battle exemption token. Gue Yuan's sect had already attached themselves to Jinyang County's county chief. After the battle exemption token took effect, he temporarily forgot all his hatred. Actually, it made sense. Gue Yuan's sect and Duanshui Pavilion were here on the orders of the county chief. Jun Changshao came to help. If he killed their people, it would be equivalent to forming a grudge with Jinyang County. Jinyang County was written on the battle exemption token. Once it took effect, all grudges related to Jinyang County would be forcibly erased. The time limit was 3 months. Once the token's effect was over, both Wu Huang and Jinyang County would return to normal. At that time, those who should be killed would be killed, and those who should be attacked would be attacked. Jun Changshao didn't know that after returning to Qingyang City, he was worried that the battle exemption token wouldn't work and was still actively setting up defenses. Sect Master. A few days later, Li Luoqiu sent news. Heian County has also fallen. However, the main force of the White Tiger Corps has already retreated. They have no intention of attacking Qingyang County. Hearing this, Jun Changshao felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Since the battle exemption token was no longer effective, he handed the city over to Xie Guanquan again and returned to the sect with his disciples. Sect Master. On the way, He Wudi said, You said you would be my last disciple. Yes. After returning to the sect, Jun Changshao arranged for him to be in front of the gate and be responsible for closing the gate every night. He really was the last disciple. He Wudi, who was standing in front of the red gate, felt a gust of wind and felt his heart collapse. What kind of trick is this? __PS, I have something to do tomorrow, so I won't update until midnight. This update will be the 4th update of the day. Tomorrow, I'll probably be outside during the day. Chapter 464. He Wudi's addition allowed Iron Bone to have a true last disciple. Pfft, ha. I can't take it anymore, I'm going to laugh until I'm out of breath. Su Xiaoma and the others held their stomachs as they laughed until they were convulsing. At the beginning, when he found out that the sect leader wanted to accept He Wudi as his last disciple, he was still very puzzled. In the end, the last disciple really closed the door, which made them laugh from ear to ear. He Wudi, who was standing in front of the door, twitched his mouth violently. That guy first let the contract beast attack him and came up with a trick. Then, he promised to take him in as his last disciple, and it was still a trick. This was really a trap. Kid. He Wudi secretly said, Do you think that by using a trick, you can keep me, a disciple with monstrous talent? He began to plan. If Ironbone didn't attract him, he would immediately leave. Junior brother be careful. A voice sounded. Woody turned his head, and then heard a bang sound, and his entire face was hit by a happy football. Bang! He crashed into the inner wall, forming a V shape. Li Fei, who was standing on the martial arts field, scratched his head and said with an embarrassed expression, "Senior brother, I really didn't do it on purpose." Su Xiaoma said, "I can see that." Junior brother Li Qingyang brought Woody to the inner courtyard wing and said, "This is your room, there are sect uniforms and sect rules inside. Wake up early tomorrow morning, do the routine drill, and then I will bring you to the cultivation method pavilion." Hearing the 3 words cultivation method pavilion, Woody's eyes immediately lit up. He was eager to understand the martial arts of this world as soon as possible, and then cultivate from the most basic. However, the next day, he changed into a brand new school uniform and danced awkwardly with the other disciples. His face was filled with despair. This was too damn shameful, too shameful. Strangely enough, after doing morning exercises, Woody actually felt comfortable and energetic. He didn't have time to think about why, and hurriedly followed Li Qingyang to the cultivation method pavilion. The cultivation technique pavilion wasn't too big, and there weren't many martial skills on the shelves. This made Woody somewhat disappointed, and he also realized that the Ironbone sect shouldn't be some famous sect. First, I'll randomly choose a mental cultivation method to cultivate, then find a time to leave. He thought to himself and began to choose. Junior apprentice brother you just entered the sect and have not opened your meridians. You should cultivate Yi Jin Jing first, Li Qingyang suggested. Okay, senior brother. Woody also knew that since he was starting from scratch, there was no need for him to cultivate any fist art, palm art, or any other kind of martial arts for the time being. Therefore, he chose the Yi Jin Jing and left. On the shelf behind him was the 7 profound sunglow fragment scroll. He wondered what expression Woody would have on his face when he saw the martial skill disappear into thin air and placed it on the Ironbone. Li Qingyang brought Woody to choose the martial skill pavilion and even brought him to pick up the pills and resources. Then, he carefully introduced the cultivation places of the sect. Our second senior brother is very competent. Woody, who had been tricked and kicked in the face, was a little unhappy at first. However, seeing how enthusiastic this young man was, his impression of the sect improved a little. After returning to his room, Woody opened the Yi Jin Jing and murmured, "With my monstrous talent, wouldn't it be easy to cultivate this kind of low-level martial arts?" Woody was very confident. However, when he started to read the Yi Jin Jing, he gradually could not help himself. In the end, he exclaimed, "Incredible." He couldn't say how incredible it was. However, he was sure that the Yi Jin Jing was extraordinary in this realm. Although he had never cultivated in the Falling Star continent and was not familiar with the cultivation style here, he could tell that it was extraordinary just by looking at the martial skill. He was indeed an expert. I don't have any martial arts cultivation now, and my meridians are sealed because of space travel. I should be able to open them easily if I cultivate this mental cultivation method. Woody hurriedly began to cultivate. Although this mental cultivation method was different from the one he cultivated in the past, it was not too difficult because it focused on the big and small circulations. As expected. He murmured, "The path of martial arts is mostly the same." Woody's talent was really strong. After cultivating for only an hour, he was able to circulate the Yi Jin Jing. "Tsk tisk." He exclaimed, "It even has the function of tempering the body. It's really the best mental cultivation method for beginners. Cultivate, cultivate." After only one day, Woody successfully gathered a small amount of spiritual energy in his body and opened the blocked first meridian. He entered the first stage of the meridian from 0. This speed was very fast. Tao Yuan, who was brought to the Ironbone, was also arranged to a separate room. Moreover, it was not locked and he could move freely. The battle exemption card took effect. He temporarily lost his memory and forgot that he was defeated and became a captive. Creak. The door opened, and Jun Changshao walked in. He smiled and said, "General Tao, are you used to living here?" Tao Yuan hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Sect leader Jun, I seem to have forgotten a lot of things. I don't know why I was locked in prison, but thank you for saving me." Jun Changshao knew that the battle exemption card took effect and could forcefully erase all enemies' memories. Therefore, he pretended to be a masked hero and rescued him from Qingyang City's dungeon. What a sneaky way of doing things. "General Tao, to be honest, I saved you because I admire you. Since you don't belong to any sect, why don't you join the Iron Bone clan?" Jun Changshao said. This, Tao Yuan fell silent again. Right at this moment, his stomach started to grumble uncontrollably. Jun Changshao said, "I've already prepared food and wine." Tao Yuan was really hungry. Moreover, because his memory had disappeared, he was neutral with Jun Changshao. Therefore, he followed him to the cafeteria. "It smells so good." He Woody, who had just walked in and was sitting in the corner, sighed as he ate. As expected, Lu Wancher's cooking was something that even a top expert would find difficult to endure. Tao Yuan followed Jun Changshao and sat down. One black and two black began to serve the dishes. Each of them was cooked separately. He Woody looked at the variety of dishes, then looked at the fried rice he was eating. The corner of his mouth twitched. This was too much of a difference in treatment. "General Tao," Jun Changshao said, "please have a taste. My Iron Bone clan's simple meal." Tao Yuan was really hungry. He first cupped his hands politely, then picked up his chopsticks and started to eat. As soon as the food entered his mouth, his expression became sluggish. When he swallowed it, the expression on his face gradually stiffened. He had been in the military camp all day and ate like a soldier. When had he ever tasted such delicacies? Sect leader Jun, Tao Yuan couldn't help but say, "I've never eaten such delicious food." "If you like it, then eat more," Jun Changshao said with a smile. Tao Yuan didn't eat. He put down his chopsticks and said seriously, "Sect leader Jun saved me from the dungeon and arranged good food and wine. I'm very grateful, but as for joining the clan," he didn't continue, but from the words he said later, it was obvious that he refused. Jun Changshao said, "General Tao, if you join, I'll take you in as my last disciple. All martial arts resources will be provided for free." Pooh! He Woody, who was sitting in the corner, spat out a mouthful of rice. Chapter 465. Tao Yuan, who had been hungry for a few days, felt like he was about to fly into the sky after eating a delicious meal. However, joining the Iron Bone sect made him feel very conflicted. To be honest, he was wholeheartedly focused on military affairs and had no intention of joining a sect. But for some reason, after being locked in the dungeon and being rescued by sect leader Jun, he was too embarrassed to directly refuse. "How about this?" Jun Changshao said, "General Tao, choose to stay here for a period of time." He was not in a hurry to recruit. He hoped to use Lu Wancher's food and the atmosphere of the sect to slowly influence Tao Yuan. Needless to say, it was very effective. Tao Yuan, who lived in the Iron Bone sect, saw the Iron Bone disciples happily doing morning exercises and cultivating every day. He secretly exclaimed, "Such a happy sect is really rare." General Tao. One day, Jun Changshao said, "I am a member of the Wolf Rider Hall. There is a military exercise today. Do you want to take a look?" Military exercise? Tao Yuan was immediately tempted. He followed Jun Changshao to the Iron Bone Mountain and stood on the mountain peak. Below, Shuirengue waved the war flag, and 1,000 members of the Wolf Rider Hall riding hurricane wolves appeared on the open grassland. "This," Tao Yuan exclaimed, "Hurricane Wolf." Jun Changshao laughed, "This is my Iron Bones Wolf Rider Hall, similar to the cavalry commanded by General Tao." Tao Yuan's gaze was solemn. "Your sect's disciples riding such a high-level wolf rider, they are definitely invincible and invincible. Jun Changshao chuckled and said to himself, your Tiger Might army has been utterly defeated by me. Shwa! Shui Rengui waved the war flag. Shwa! Shwa! 1,000 wolf riders charged forward, constantly changing their formation during the process, causing Tao Yuan to be so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. These disciples riding hurricane wolves could even use formations skillfully. It was unbelievable. If his tiger army fought against them, they would definitely be defeated. Of course. Tao Yuan was more concerned about Shui Rengui, who commanded the wolf riders. Jun Changshao said, General Tao, that is the hall master of my wolf rider hall. He is a retired soldier and has some knowledge in the art of war. If you are interested, you can discuss it with him. I am. Tao Yuan said bluntly. Jun Changshao thought that the opportunity had come, and arranged for him to discuss it with Shui Rengui. The two of them discussed it until late into the night. Tao Yuan was a rising star in the military. Although he was talented, he was still far from being a 5-star general. Shui Rengui's understanding of the way to use of troops. Shui Rengui to Tao Yuan. The more to the two, the more to the point close for a long time. After the discussion to the end. To the junior to the iron to the junior to the end. Shui Yer Jun Shui. To the Shui to the lion, of to the, of to the two, of the heaven. Tao Yuan's eyes were filled with yearning. As a general, he didn't care about breaking through to Martial King, Wu Huang, or Martial Emperor. He cared more about obtaining the rank of a 5-star general in his lifetime. This was proof of strength. General Tao. Shui Rengui said, with all due respect, although Bai Ruihu can be considered a famous general, his ability is limited. Following him will only limit your future talent. Tao Yuan was silent. Moreover, Shui Rengui continued, as far as I know, Bai Ruihu is narrow-minded and extremely jealous. Once General Tao's military talent is displayed enough in Jinyang County, he will definitely smell danger. Jun Changshao, who had been eavesdropping with his spiritual thoughts, touched his nose and said, Hall Master Shui's strategy of sowing discord is ingenious. Tao Yuan remained silent the whole time. He had some understanding of Bai Ruihu's character. Shui Rengui said seriously, General Tao, why don't you join Iron Bone? The two of us can work together to build the Wolf Riders and make them the strongest army in the Falling Star continent. The strongest army in the Falling Star continent? These words ignited the blood in Tao Yuan's body. Every general hoped to build the strongest army in the continent. Shui Rengui continued, General Tao should know the requirements to become a 5-star general, right? I know. Tao Yuan said. To become a 5-star general, one must have a well-trained and powerful army. Shui Rengui had built a super army in Zhongzhuang province back then, called the Renjun Army. It had always been ranked 3rd on the Falling Star Continent's army ranking, so it was awarded the title of 5-star general. The White Tiger Army led by Bai Ruihu was also quite famous, so it was awarded the 3-star general rank. However, its ability was limited. It was already difficult to become a 4-star general, let alone a 5-star general. Tao Yuan's Tiger Army was not bad, but its upper limit was so high that it could not help him obtain a higher rank. Although the Wolf Rider Hall was a sect, it could apply to become an army. Its future potential was enormous. The sect master said. Shui Rengui said, if General Tao joins Iron Bone, you can become the deputy hall master of the Wolf Rider Hall. Tao Yuan was silent for a moment, then said, I'll think about it. Done. Jun Changxiao's lips curled into a smile. In his opinion, Tao Yuan must be tempted. He only needed a little time to join Iron Bone. As expected. After a night of thinking, Tao Yuan came to the main hall the next day. He cupped his hands and said, Sect Master Jun, I am willing to join Iron Bone clan. Jun Changxiao happily took out the entry form and filled in his name. At this time, with the no battle card, Tao Yuan joined Iron Bone without any burden. If the effect disappeared and he turned around and left, then it would be very troublesome. Therefore, Sect Master Jun said, after a while, I will appoint you as the Deputy Hall Master. You can be a closed-door disciple for now. Yes. Therefore, not only was he Woody standing in front of the door, but also Tao Yuan. They each had a door and were responsible for closing the door after dark. It was very fair. This, Tao Yuan said helplessly, this is the closed-door disciple. After recruiting Tao Yuan, Jun Changshao started to plan how to deal with Shenyang County and the 2 fourth-rate sects in 3 months. Become stronger. Become even stronger. The next day, Jun Changshao first set up the sect's equipment and began to distribute large amounts of spirit stones and high-grade chi-gathering pills to the disciples, so that they could break through faster. Hall Master Li Jun Changshao said, I will leave the sect's affairs to you for now. I have decided to cultivate in seclusion. Okay. Li Luocho said. After everything was arranged, Jun Changshao first cultivated in the spirit gathering array for 2 hours, then got up and went to the Tower of Experience. He did not temper his body on the first level, nor did he temper his movement technique on the second level. Instead, he directly went to the 3rd level, which he had never been to before. Ta! He stepped into the area covered by the attributes of heaven and earth. Phew! Jun Changshao took a breath and said, what is the theme of the 3rd level? Host, try it with a punch, the system said. Shwa! Jun Changshao threw a punch and said in surprise, my spiritual energy is being consumed very quickly. The system said, the 3rd level is to make the host consume spiritual energy too quickly and then quickly replenish it, repeatedly refining the purity of the spirit nucleus. Is that so? Jun Changshao began to throw punches. With the energy of his 2 spirit nuclei, it would not be a problem for him to fight for several days and nights in the outside world. However, in just 2 hours, it was completely consumed. Huff huff. He sat down cross-legged and activated Body Metamorphose Scripture. The heaven and earth attributes in the 3rd level surged out like a wave and were completely replenished in just a few minutes. Jun Changshao said in surprise, if I fight with others and exhaust my spiritual energy, then come in here to replenish it, won't I be able to continue fighting? The system said, host, you are thinking too much. The attributes here will only be replenished when you consume them.